Hello everyone, this is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and have a fun show today. We have Gretchen with us. Gretchen is one of the VIP Patreons, so Patreon people, patrons as they're properly called. Gretchen, are you there?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everybody in the chat room. Let me see who's back in the chat room. I got to go over to my comments. Okay, I see Molly is here, and Lisa's here. And this is a weird time of day for a lot of people because it is good for the UK, and a lot of the US people and Canada people are working, if they're working, or busy going about their things. But I moved the times around so we can make sure that, you know, everybody gets a chance. And as you pointed out, if this is a 7 o'clock show, you got to get out of bed at midnight and just to do the call-in. So I didn't really want you to do that in your sleep. So I'm very happy that I can move times around. It doesn't make any difference. So it's really cool. So this is going to be, I think this is my, how many call-ins have I had? Oh, Benny's here too. Hi, Benny. So it's early for him too. See, hey, it's good for Denmark as well. So we've got Europe. So anyway, if anybody hasn't seen one of my call-ins before, the call-ins are very special to my VIP patrons. If you would like to participate in this kind of thing, you click on the link below for Patreon. I have 5 different levels. At the 3rd level, you can join all my live shows that are 6 times a month. Those are the ones I do the case shows about different cases. At the next level up, you can join also the Hangouts every week. And then on the top level, you get to do all that plus, you know, be here and do the call-ins. So something, I try to have something for my Patreon people. I try to have something participatory for every level so that, you know, it's worth doing rather than just, oh, I'll give you a couple private videos. It's like, what? Some channels do that. This is, you join and then you see the regular videos, and then for some reason you get a couple videos they don't let anybody else see, and I'm not sure what that really even means. But you know, all my videos are public, so nobody has to join Patreon to see my videos. So they're always public to everybody. And I just want to say, if you do like the video, please hit the like button, share it with people, subscribe to the channel, and you can see all the rest of the stuff. Well, you can see it anyway, but it supports the channel. So please do subscribe and check the playlist. That's what I was trying to say. Check the playlist because all the different cases you might be interested in are there on the playlist. And hit the bell for notifications. Okay, that's all over. All right, I have to do that little spiel, you know, because I'm trying to keep the channel alive with wonderful support like people like you, Gretchen. So anyway, hi, Gretchen.
Oh, hi everyone again.
Gretchen went to sleep during that part where I was like, she's like, when is she going to stop? And we can get on with the show.
I know. I watch it every week. I know.
You know, my spiels, I change them. I don't actually have a real one. I just make up stuff every week. So, but, so Gretchen, first of all, you are living where?
I live in the UK. I live in England. So I'm born in the United States, but I moved over to England in about 2002. So I've lived here for almost 20 years.
Oh, okay.
I live in a town called Kettering, which is in the East Midlands. So I would say it's about, if you jump on the train, it'll take about maybe an hour and 10 minutes to get to London. So about 1 million miles away from there.
So what is the biggest, I'm just curious about this just myself. I have been in London quite a few times, mostly for work. And I did live in Ealing once for 1 month when I was 23 years old. Yeah, very unsuccessful stay, I must admit. I was going from college got some cheap place with a friend of mine. I don't really remember much of it, what my life was like many years ago for my 1 month in England. But what do you think the main difference to you is between the U.S. and England? What do you think, the U.S. and the U.K.? What's the biggest, you know, what do you feel is the biggest difference that you see where you're living now as opposed to when you're in the U.S.?
I think the one thing that really shocked me when I came here was the size of the houses and the property that you get. Like my back garden probably wouldn't fit in would fit in my parents' driveway of their home, because it literally would. I mean,
Wow.
it's just a little narrow strip, probably about 50 feet long, maybe another 20 feet wide. I mean, it's good enough for me, but yeah. But whereas my parents, I mean, property in the United States is, there's an abundance of property in America, abundance of land in America compared to England. So
It depends where you want to live.
That's what part of the reason.
Yeah.
True, yeah. If you want to live in London, it's going to be, when you said cheap place in London, I thought, my goodness, I wouldn't know where there were
Well,
any.
that was many years ago, and I think it was like
Yeah.
a basement flat of some sort. I don't remember it being particularly gorgeous. Let me put it. I didn't have a garden. I did not have a garden. But you're right, because one of my favorite shows is House Hunters International, and when I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I see the UK shows, you see people moving from the US to the UK, and they're going, "I like outdoor space," and the real estate person's going, "Okay, for the price you want to pay, yeah, this is it." So
Yeah.
I think
My
you're
parents
correct.
don't get that either. They're just like, "Oh, why don't you move out here? Why don't you move to Cambridge or Oxford to buy one of those nice little cottages out on
Ooh.
the out in the countryside?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't have £1 million available. That's how much they cost. They're a fortune. They're beautiful, but they're a fortune."
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because one of the places I like to look at some of the houses in Mexico and down in Central America, and I'm always amazed because Hawaii is another favorite place of mine, and so I see people going to get a house in Hawaii, right? And they're like, "Okay, so for the $750,000, here's your 2-bedroom." It's a really crappy place. And then it's like, now down in Guatemala on Lake Atitlán, if you pay $150,000, we're going to give you this place. And you're like, oh my God, and it's huge and it has a dock on the lake. It's like, what a difference, depending on where you're at.
Yeah,
So-
there's just no comparison. There's just no comparison. I've had friends that have retired from England with their pensions and gone to maybe the big craze for a while was Spain, because it was a lot cheaper.
Right.
But now Spain's actually come up to pretty high prices. And I've got a friend that she moved to Eastern Europe. She moved to Bulgaria, and she's been out there for 20 years. And yeah, I mean, for what her British money goes a heck of a lot farther out there.
Right,
because
right. And sometimes
the
when you're
cost of
thinking
living
toward
is-
where you're going to live in retirement, or later on, when the rest of the inflation kills all of us off, you got to find a place you might be able to sneak away to that isn't a tent in the mountains. So, I wanted to ask you this, since you've been in both places. What do you see? Since this is a crime show and we're going to get to crime right now, what do you see as a difference between, do you have a feeling of the difference between the crime in the US and the crime in the UK? Or how it's handled?
There's definite difference in the type of crime. You don't see as much gun crime over here, because
Right.
I
There are less
wouldn't even know
guns.
how to get a weapon in the UK.
Oh, wait a minute. Would you like some help?
I'm sure
I know
it
some.
must be-
I know
I'm sure
some
it's
people,
possible.
Gretchen.
Oh, really? Oh,
No, I'm just kidding you.
okay. Wow.
I'm kidding.
Knife crime is really what the serious crime here, and that's what the police are probably trained more to deal with knife crime incidences, because that's the most
Right.
prevalent, probably the most violent. Weapons laws here are very strict. Although people do get by them, it is one of the faster growing ones. But it's not like the United States, where I don't even know what the handgun death toll is. I think it's it's in thousands.
It's not good.
day.
It's not good, especially because one of the things we're suffering from, which people don't want to deal with, is the fact that it's the illegal weapons that are getting into the hands of young teens in the inner
Exactly.
cities, and it's really sad because it's kind of become a lifestyle, and it's kind of that whole concept is exploited in a lot of the present day rap, and you see the guys. I just talked about the other week about one of a rapper who right down the street from me, who was shot to death, and he was coming up with a really interesting new rap style too, and it made me sad. But then when I went to look at his work on YouTube, he was really good. He really was an up-and-coming star. He was good, but he still did all his rap stuff with guns. Everything was about guns and violence, and he died the same way. And so it's kind of like teaching the younger people that that's what you want to do, is get yourself a gun. And so we have had, I think the the homicide rate has skyrocketed in the U.S. and over the last couple of years, so it's really gotten bad. But if we don't do something about the guns falling into the hands of these teenagers, it's it's pretty scary. But I find it interesting what you're talking about with the knife crime, because there are many countries that have some vicious knife crime. Can't get a gun, you can really do a lot of work with that knife. It's like amazing.
They do teach us.
Yeah.
They do teach us. I mentioned that I do martial arts, and they say that. And I don't know if I can agree with it 100%, but they say a knife is as dangerous as a gun. Now, I don't know about that, but no, it can definitely kill you. It can definitely do damage.
Right.
And going on to I love your comments about self-defense and the sort of 3-hour crash courses. And
good.
That they give
That's the next thing we're going to talk about. Okay, hold on one second. Let me just say. There's a question here before we go into the self-defense thing, because I don't get to talk about that very much with people who have any clue. It's like, usually the people taking classes, not people who I know you do martial arts, so something. So, but I want to go into, Benny has a question for you. Benny says, Gretchen, is the public aware of the Madeleine McCann facts, or are they buying the abduction / Christian Bruckner stuff?
I think they're sort of buying the Christian Bruckner stuff. I don't know, but yeah, people I think some are suspicious of the McCanns,
right.
But as I think you pointed out, there seems to be this really strange fear around them. And yeah, they scare Scotland Yard into investigating, like you've mentioned. There's no evidence of an abduction, and they've spent how many years just looking for something that's not there because of a pair of middle-class doctors. And I actually live in the next county over from them.
Do you really? Well, one thing I pointed out many times, because what happens is on the internet, once somebody becomes interested in a particular case, they find the Facebook groups and the Twitter groups and YouTube channels that all support what they think. So what'll happen is you create your own fishbowl, and you have your own personal little fish running around in there saying what you're saying, so that echo chamber type thing. And so I've tried to tell people forever, when they're like, they're going to get the point now, the public in the UK, they know now. I'm like, no, they don't. They're not listening to that group you're in or me. They're not reading my book. They're listening to the major media, and the major media is supporting the Christian Bruckner thing. They're supporting McCann's as totally innocent. They're supporting the abduction theory. And as we saw last week when I was invited to go on the show, as soon as I found out what I thought, they're like, we can't really have you on. So thank you very much, Pat. So the public didn't get to hear.
I love that thing you did about the because that was in the press about the fibers, and how you broke that down and said, well, so what? They found some fibers. If they found a strand of her hair or something, maybe
something, at least something. It would actually mean
but what
her.
we have in England and in the UK with the press is we have so many different newspapers as well on a little island maybe that's about the size of Texas, and they're all competing with one another, and so I think that plays into it as well. You've got so many papers with a lot fewer people to read them, so they're all fighting for headlines, fighting for readership, and all of this. So.
And they don't want to get sued by the McCanns, because the McCanns are very litigious. And when I was actually going to write a book with Gonzalo Amaral, I don't know how many people know that, but after I wrote, Gonzalo wrote his book, Truth of the Lie, and then I wrote my book, Profile of the Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. And then after I'd written the book, then I eventually got to go over to Portugal. And so I spent, 3 weeks, month in Portugal. And I went to Praia de Luz, and I met Gonzalo. And at that point, he really wanted to have a book written in English and published in the English-speaking world. So I said, well, I'll get together with my agent, and I think this will be a great book. The original detective on the case and an American criminal profiler. This would make a great book. And I think I called it, what was it? The Mystery of Madeleine McCann, something. I can't remember the name I gave it. It was a good name. And I wrote up the whole proposal, which takes a lot of work. So I got this whole proposal for Gonzalo and me to do this book. My agent took it out, and all the publishers said, sounds fascinating, we're not going to touch it, because we don't want to get sued by the McCanns. And I'm like, and So what happens is, people, they get scared, and they're looking at this as, how much money am I going to make compared to how much money I could lose? And for me, what happened in my book, of course, it was on Amazon, and then the McCanns threatened Amazon. So Carter Ruck wrote this letter to Amazon and said, the book is libelous, get it off Amazon, or we're going to sue you. And since that was a self-pub, because nobody else would publish it, Amazon's like, yeah, we're not making enough money. And so they just pulled it, And I was never threatened, because, if the McCanns ever threatened me, I would take them to court, because I want to put them on the stand. And I wouldn't hire a lawyer. I'd just go up, I'd be my own lawyer, and I would put them on the stand, and I'd have a lot of fun with that, I might be a poor person the rest of my life, but I have all my money hidden, McCanns, you can't get it. But I will put them on the stand, because if they're going to say that what I say is defamatory, they have to prove, or libelous, they have to prove that what I said was not true. And they're not going to take that chance. So I knew they would never sue me, but they can threaten, publisher, and the publisher's just like, it's just not worth it. So that's why a lot of these now the newspapers will never say anything negative, because they don't want to take the chance. So they're scared. So anyway, let's go on to self-defense. I love it. So yeah, Gretchen. So you brought that one up, and I was really excited about that. So what do you think of self-defense for women?
Well, I think, I agree with what you say. If these instructors are coming up and saying, yeah, I'm going to teach you how to fight back against a man in 3 hours, well, no. I think I mentioned this before, and my instructors are very good, and they tell me in about 99.99999% of cases, women are not going to win a strength battle against a man. You're just not going to do it.
That is correct. And you know how I always point this out to people? It's called weight class. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you look at boxing, because my brother-in-law is a champion boxer, and I've done boxing too. My brother-in-law was a champion at, okay, let me think now. He got 3 belts. I can't remember now. IBF, WBC. I can't remember. It's been a long time. Welterweight and light middleweight. I'm thinking that area, right? He's not going to fight heavyweight, He's not. If he fought a heavyweight, he'd be pounded by somebody, Mike Tyson would knock him out. And then on the other hand, if you're a Korean flyweight, you wouldn't want to, be against my brother-in-law, because the flyweight will go down. So hold on a second. I had a tickle in my throat. I always love. I don't have a cough thing. They have these in a real studio. You hit the cough button, and then you can go. I don't have that. So essentially, women are mostly flyweights, and almost everybody we would fight, first of all, is not in the female division, unless you got, some street girl after you, But most of the time, they're not even in the female division, they're in the male division. So they automatically have stronger bodies and muscles. So now we're flyweights going against, probably most of the time, middleweights, heavyweights, and your chances suck. They suck. You don't want to be there, so yeah, it's nice to have skill, but
it is exactly it. It doesn't mean that a woman shouldn't try to defend themselves.
Absolutely.
Definitely should. But and you can, and it doesn't mean that you can't fight back, and it doesn't mean that you can't even possibly even hurt a guy, but you're not going to do it on the basis of strength. You're going to have to do it some other way. You're going to have to find areas of sensitivity. These 3-hour ones, I don't think they should be even teaching fighting skills. They should be teaching escape.
Well, the problem with the 3-hour ones is, first of all, what martial arts are you studying, Gretchen?
I used to do JKD, which is basically a mix of sort of like kickboxing, sticks, knife technique. That's a really scary one when they try to tell you that, oh yeah, we can teach you how to disarm a knife, and I'm like, I could do it in a classroom with a fake knife, but if it ever happened to me on the street, I can tell you what my best defense against a knife is going to be.
Running?
It's going to be my feet. Yeah. I'm going to run. I'm going to run for it if I can. And that's what any good instructor should be telling you. Don't take that on unless you have to. If you're backed in a corner or something, and
you better find a very large piece of metal, something that you can block the entire person from coming near you. Because if they get that sucker in there,
a car, jump behind a parked car, just stop open, run in there, anything like that. That's what you need to be looking at. We do some training. Like, one of the things I'll say is a mobile phone. Keep your mobile phone handy to where you can get to it, because that in itself is something that you could use if you had to fight back. You hit somebody in the side of the head with the corner of one of those. And
I see what you're saying. Well, if you're properly protecting your cell phone, it's useless, because I got rubber around all the edges of mine, so that ain't gonna work. One of the things one of the few tools I recommend is, and I don't own one. I do own one. I keep forgetting to take it with me. Stupid me. Anyway, it doesn't help. Here's the thing. It's like, how they say, oh, what's the best camera to have? And they say the one you have with you, because I have a really great camera, right? And if I'm traveling and I'm like in the Guatemalan jungle, I'm taking a picture of pretty birds, and mine has a great zoom, and I can get that teeny little thing, I don't even know if it's a bird, right up there with his eyeball, But when I'm running around, most of the time I don't have that camera. So the best camera I have is whatever I've got with me, which is my iPhone, At least I got a picture. So they say the best camera you have is the one you have with you. So in the same sense, you have to have, if you're going to have some kind of a piece of equipment that's going to help you, you better have it with you, not leave it where I leave it, which is on the shelf.
And you have to be able to get to it.
Exactly.
One of the
ones I like best is the extremely loud alarm. So what you do with that, the nice thing about it is that it's so loud, it'll ruin your ears, but it does a couple things. One is, it's very easy. You can't screw it up like, with other things like pepper spray and other stuff. You can succumb to it yourself as opposed to the other person. But that screeching horrible noise.
Myself in the eyes with it.
Yeah. So the horrible noise thing. The thing about that is, all you have to do is get it going and just try to chuck it in the grass nearby. The problem the guy has is, it's not comfortable because it hurts. The scream, that horrible piercing sound, that it's unpleasant. Secondly, it might draw somebody's attention. And third, he can't concentrate on what he's doing. And it might shock him enough if you have time to run. But it's I like that because it's like, it's something you can't screw up. It might actually help. So I that's one of the few things I recommend for people who have no skills. Take something like that with you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the things you have in your hand, like for example, if you have nunchucks or you have some kind of, I have this really cool, it's like you hold it in your hand and it's got this like ridges and then it's got this pointy stabby thing, but you better know how to use it. Otherwise it's just going to go in your own eyeball when you drop it, and he picks it up.
Another thing they don't tell you is if that does happen to you, your brain shuts down for the first few seconds. Your body fills with a chemical, I think it's called cortisol or something,
right,
when you're in that sort of situation. So, I was mugged once. Unfortunately, I was not hurt. I was actually, the ironic thing was I was out with my martial arts club that night, and we were out celebrating people's birthdays.
Oh my God.
And it was late at night, 2:00 in the morning. I'd had a couple of glasses of wine, but wasn't drunk. I had my wits about me, and I'm literally on my street walking down the road, and they saw me coming. Basically, woman in a dress. It's Saturday night. Obviously, she's been out for a party. Well, let's try. And I noticed the guy walk past me. So obviously, I didn't think anything of it at the time. He was walking past me to see if I had a handbag or something, and then I thought, and I ended up walking past him again. I thought, well, that's strange. And then all of a sudden he comes up behind me and says, okay, give me your purse. And I didn't really get what was happening because, like you said, your brain sort of switches off.
Right.
And I thought, no, I'm not going to give you my purse. I'm kind of thinking, how rude of you. And I keep walking. And
that's funny.
And then he asked me, and I think he was kind of shocked that I actually said that,
It's like,
hang on. Yeah, and then he says again, he goes, give me your purse. And I was like, no. And then he says, "Give me your purse or I'll stab you." And then it clicked. I thought, hang on a minute, this is a mugging, and I'm really not being very smart here. And well, basically, I looked at him and I could see his hands were out front. I could see he didn't have a knife. I knew that you've got 3 to 5 seconds in that case. If he goes and reaches for a pocket, you run. You throw the purse and you run. Don't fight over whatever money is in the purse. Someone's dying over. I tried to calm the situation down. I said, look, you know, I don't want any trouble. I live on the street. Everybody here knows me. If I start screaming, people are going to start coming out. I just want to go home. And then he just grabbed my arm and started tugging. And then I didn't realize there were 2 of them. Another guy comes out and starts pulling as well. And I did manage to get a hold of them. I was going to do one of the moves, but it all happened so quickly. My hand was really sweaty, and the handle on my purse was plastic, and it slipped out of my hand. And as soon as they had that, they ran off. I mean, that was all they really wanted.
Right.
And then I was really upset. I was like, "Oh, get back here! Come on!" You know? I started getting my wits about me. Like, no, come on.
But I think you point out something very, very important. You know, I always loved this story. It was done by a yogi, and a famous yogi. It's from the book Autobiography of a Yogi. And anyway, he has a student, and the student says, Yogi master, whatever he calls him, Yogi Ji, you say that we should never harm any animals, you know. And the yogi says, no, son, you should never harm animals. You should be a vegetarian. You should, never try not to step on any ants, don't harm any animals. So the student says, Yogi Ji, what about if there's a cobra in front of you? And he says, son, even if there's a cobra has a right to live. It also is part of the planet, and we should care for all animals, even if it's a cobra. And then he goes, of course there's not a cobra in front of me right now. And I thought, bingo, that is absolutely true. In other words, until you're in that situation, you absolutely do not know how you're going to respond, whether you're going to freeze, whether you're going to panic, what you're going to do. No matter, even if you practice things over and over again, quite frankly,
oh yeah,
suddenly you're there, and you think, oh my God, the guy, is going to kill me. You have a whole different, you just don't know, which is why I always recommend to people, do your best to avoid ever getting in the situation, because as you point out, you have a chance. I mean, if you have martial arts, and I am a firm believer in studying martial arts, because if you have skills, you have a better chance. Absolutely. Because, you might surprise somebody, and if you can surprise them long enough to escape, that's what you need. So I believe in studying martial arts, boxing, whatever you can do, weapons, whatever you can do. But always recognize that you've increased your chances of survival, but not necessarily dramatically to the point where you should just say, oh, look, this is what I always say about these dumb classes. You got the 3-hour class, or even the 3-night class, and the girls are in there and they're doing their punches. And you know what's wrong with this.
Yeah, you're going to break your wrist.
Exactly. I'm like, you can't, you have to learn how to properly punch. You can't be doing the girly break wrist thing, because you're going to hit that guy one time, and that's the last thing you're going to do, and then he's going to pummel you to death.
Yeah.
So, and then I saw them try to do the kicks, and if you've done martial arts, throwing a good snap kick, roundhouse, side kick requires balance and strength, and how to get your body into it to do the proper kick. And I saw these girls, they're like, first of all, half the time when they're going to approach somebody, they're looking for the girl with the 4-inch heels. You come tottering out of the bar like this with your purse, and you can hardly walk anyway because you're drunk. And then the guy comes up and she goes, oh, I'm going to kick you on her 4-inch heels. I was like, I don't think so. And she's like,
better off throwing it at him.
Oh my God, she'll just fall over and break her ankle first, then he beats you to death. So I'm like, stop teaching women that in 3 hours they can learn things. And that one thing, I never forgot this, because I took one of these classes to find out what they were teaching. And I still remember the thing about where they talked about how to get out of a grab and how you twist your hand, right? And I thought, okay, so they grabbed me and I twisted out, right? I went home to my husband and I said, grab my hand, I'm going to twist out. He grabbed my hand and I was on the floor begging. I couldn't move.
Yeah.
My ex-husband was a mechanic. He had hands of steel. There wasn't any way. I'm like, oh, I wasn't going to, you know. I mean, again, if you're lucky, you've practiced it enough, you've been in martial arts a long time, yes, it may work. But in a 3-hour class and you never practice, all it teaches these women, this is what I heard when they were walking out the door. Oh, now I know how to protect myself. I'm thinking, no, you don't. Now you think you can come out of a club drunk in your high heels, walk down into the dark parking lot, and you're going to protect yourself against a 230-pound crazy psycho dude. No, you're going to be.
You're not.
You're going to be in his trunk.
You're going to end up dead.
Yeah, exactly. So
Exactly.
I'm like so frustrated with that, and I'm like, but people say, oh, you don't think women should learn martial arts? And no, I love martial arts, but learn them. And how often do you go do your training?
Probably about 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow.
I do my stick fighting on Sunday nights, and then I train with a black belt.
Oh, so
privately.
you're sparring.
And then, yeah, I've done some sparring.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Can I ask a question? You don't have to answer the question.
Sure.
How old are you?
55.
Wow. Okay. I'm really impressed. You know why? Because I went back to boxing. This is before the pandemic ruined me and made me fat pig. But anyway, it's like I was taking up boxing again, right? Because I really like boxing the best. And so I'm like, okay, so they got me on the heavy bag, right? And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Boom, boom. You know, I'm doing my heavy bag. I can do is beat back. You know, all that's good. Then the instructor gets up with the mitts. You know what I mean? And I'm like, pop, pop, pop. Okay, that's cool. Then they want me to spar with this dude who is not in my weight class. You know, a dude, and he's not in my weight class. And of course, we weren't sparring. I take it back. It was more like I'm holding the mitts and then he's holding the mitts, but I'm thinking, that dude misses these mitts. My face is caved in.
Yeah.
You know, my shoulder's broken. And I'm like, when I started out with the boxing, they were very impressed by my general skill level. You know, I mean, I look good, let me put it that way. I wasn't strong, but I look good because I've been around boxing for all my life. So they're like, oh, because, you know, I'm 66. They're like, oh, look at you. You don't look like you look boxing. But I'm like, I just don't know if I ever want to step into a ring. I like the concept, but I'm like, do I really want to risk the damage? So how do you deal with the risking the damage? Because even though when I did non-contact sparring once with Taekwondo, I did contact and non-contact. I got more injured with a non-contact because those people miss. I got my ribs broken, stuff like that, and I'm like, because things go wrong, and they, so they're not supposed to contact, but they do. So how do you do your
Well, we do mostly light contact when we spar, or medium contact.
Can I do this? No, are you? No. Do you have headgear?
No, we're not required to wear headgear, but
right. Wow.
I mean, if you're going to go hard, yeah, they recommend it. But yeah.
Okay.
But
Wow.
I don't do a lot of competitive kickboxing. I compete in sort of like stick fighting, but we're armored in that. So
Wow.
it's which still kind of can hurt, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that is so cool, Gretchen. I mean, when I heard you did that, I was like so excited because I'm like, I'm hoping to get back into the boxing as the coronavirus is.
I started it because I just wanted to get in shape. I had no idea about self-defense or anything, and that all kind of came later. But one thing they will tell you is that if you're doing this just for self-defense reasons,
right,
learning a martial art, it's really not that you're wasting your time, unless of course you're a security guard or a police officer, obviously.
Right.
But most people in their lifetime are probably going to only be in that situation once or twice in their lifetime. And I went to another seminar and this guy was really good. And he says, and if it's happening to you a lot more than that, you need to look at your lifestyle and what you're doing and the people that you hang out with, because
get off the meth. Get off the meth, lady.
Yeah.
Well,
Don't go walking.
Well, Gretchen, did you hear my story that happened in West Africa?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, good. I get to tell you that. You don't have to say, I heard this before and roll your eyes. But some people here probably heard that. Oh, wait a minute. I just want to say this. Let me put up Lisa's thing first. 55 was a good age. 66 is still good, Lisa. Okay. I did my martial arts class 3 times a week. All right. Until I was 59 last year. I never did it for self-defense, though. Not a motivation. All right. Very good. See? Awesome. Okay. I'm going to tell my story. I know some people have heard this before, but I just think this is so true about the martial arts thing. So anyway, I had taken Taekwondo from Jun Rhee, who was the first Taekwondo school in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in his first school, and I dated his nephew. Okay. So anyway, and I was going to be in his first karate movie, but unfortunately, I got my ribs broken, as I mentioned, and I got a damage on a roundhouse kick pull, my back muscle, and they replaced me with some other bimbo. So anyway, but I missed my trip to Korea. Still pisses me off. Anyway, but I had been there and had been studying. I went every day. I worked out 3 to 4 hours a day. I was 17 when I started. So anyway, at 19 years old, I was in West Africa, in Nigeria, and I was staying at this hotel. And as I was walking down to my room, I opened up my door, and as I stepped in, this guy came in right behind me. Now, I always point out to people, when you see a situation where the person says, there was no sign of breaking and entering, this is one way that there is no sign, but I didn't let the guy in. So then people say, oh, she wanted the guy in there. No, I didn't. I was opening my hotel door, and I was stepping in, and the guy came in right behind me and shut the door behind me. He was a British sailor, okay? Fortunately, he wasn't a really big British sailor, so that did help. His weight class was on the low side. that helped without my fear level. Anyway, he pushes his way in. He shuts the door behind me. He looks me in the eye, and he says, you're going to do what I want. Which obviously was rape, right? And because I had taken martial arts, for some reason, I don't know where I got the guts to do it, but I dropped into a position like this, and I started cussing at him. I'm going to beat if you take a step forward, I'm going to. And the guy looked at me and went like, and he left. And I went,
fantastic.
I went, that worked? I mean, I was stunned. I was like, who knew? But I think what happened was he was expecting me to panic and go, oh, and he would push me on the bed, and I would just do nothing because I was a young girl. But I think when I dropped into that stance and started threatening him, and he could see I had a look that I could actually fight, it wasn't worth it to him to continue, because then he would be possibly injured, have evidence, all that kind of crap. Mm-hmm. And he just thought it wasn't worth it.
A lot of noise. Somebody might hear them.
Yeah, so he thought it wasn't worth it, and he left. So I will say, martial arts training did probably save me from being raped in that circumstance. But it was a fortunate circumstance that for some reason, I wasn't overly terrified, because he was a lower weight class. If he had been a big bruiser, what am I going to do? I'm looking up at big huge dude going, I'm going to beat you up. When it worked, but he was just kind of really a thin little sailor dude. You know what I mean? So, but I just love that.
Well, good trainers will teach you to use your brain as well, rather than they'll teach you skill, but they also will say that it's your brain that is really going to get you out of a situation. If somebody has a knife to your throat, that's the end game. You don't try to skill your way out of that when you start talking the situation down.
Well, okay. I'm going to interrupt on that, because this is something that really bugs me, and I hear this a lot, and it's the wrong thing to tell women. Not what you're saying, but it's told a lot by even profilers, and what they'll say is this: when you have a woman who survives, for example, a serial killer, right? She says, I talked him out of it. I started talking to him nicely. I said, I like you, you're my friend, or I have a child, please don't hurt me because I have a child, that kind of bullshit. And they say, I talked him out of attacking me. No, the guy's a psychopath, he killed 8 other women. That wasn't the reason he didn't kill you. If he didn't kill you, it had nothing to do with what you said. Absolutely nothing. And the problem is this. Let's say you're victim number 9, right? And you say, oh, I got out of this by talking to him. How do you know those other 8 women didn't say the exact same thing? And he killed all of them. You don't know that because they're dead. And they can't say, oh, I said to him, I have 2 little girls and I have parents to take care of, so please could you spare my life? Okay, that didn't work.
Nope.
So you can't talk psychopaths out of things. So talking a way out is, I'm like, you can try all you want, but we'll never know if it worked or not, because if you're dead, we can't prove it, it didn't work, but we don't know you said anything. If you happen to survive, it could be something else that happened. It could be he wasn't in the mood. It could be that, he had something else to do. He heard noise behind him and he thought this isn't going to be worth it. It could be a million other things that you think are the things that got you out of it, because you were talking. So I don't buy that, and I don't ever want to teach that to people. What I do want to teach to people, hold on a second, I have hair in my eye. Wow. That's really uncomfortable. Hold on a second. Oh, what in the heck? First I have scratchy throat, now I have hair in my eye. Okay, I think that worked. Okay, so what I try to teach people is the brainy stuff is before you go someplace. The brainy stuff is making a decision based on where am I going and how do I keep safe. I've traveled a lot of the world. I have traveled in so many countries. I've been to India 5 times. I've been to Mexico 5 times. I've been to Guatemala. I've been to Belize. I've been to Honduras. I've been to Mongolia with Annie, who is one of our patrons. I've been to China a couple times. I've been a lot of places in the world. I've never been robbed. And I went to Cuba with $11,000 in cash in my boots.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and so I was like Dolly Parton. So yes, because I took 10 women to Cuba, and each one of them gave me $1,000, and you're not allowed as an American to use a credit card or use an ATM machine in Cuba. You have to have solid cash. So I had $11,000 in cash on my boobs, and I got through there perfectly fine by using smarts. So what I did was I told the women, first of all, when we arrived at the airport, I gave everybody a sticker. It was a Canadian maple leaf. I stuck that on all their luggage, because Canada can use credit cards and ATMs. Americans cannot.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. Second thing I did was hire a driver. I'm like, normally I like to take local transport, but in this situation, I'd rather have one driver so that we don't have to take risk factors on there. And then what I would do is at night or in the morning when I got up, got everything settled. I got bills I paid the people for the places and all the Airbnbs and all that. What I would do is go into the bathroom and I would remove from my boobs or I put into my boobs. Okay, I got $10,000 today. I got this much money. I got to pay the hotel people, this much for the food, and I divide it into different things. Inside pocket on my jeans, some in my backpack I have a wallet that I carry in my backpack which has phony credit cards, phony ATM cards, and I put a small amount of cash so that if somebody wants my wallet, they can have it. And that way I look like that's all I've got. I don't ever wear jewelry when I'm traveling. So when they look at me, they're like, she ain't got that much, And every day my boobs got smaller and smaller and smaller. No, I swam with $10,000 on my boobs one day because it's underneath a sports bra, and it's in a one of those wraparound. It's completely solid in there, and it's waterproof. So I went swimming. I mean, like, oh, that's pretty cool. I've never swam with $10,000, And then every day I say my boobs got smaller until by the end of the trip I had, well, okay, I'm not that small because I gained weight, but okay, before the coronavirus, I at least got down to a reasonable. But I figured they think a fat tourist, what the hell, they don't notice my boobs. So there's ways to do things when you're traveling, to say, where am I going and what should I wear? What kind of safety factors do I have? Am I going to a part of town that I'm going to put myself at risk because I'm wearing certain kinds of jewelry? I went out with my Indian friends in Minneapolis. Minneapolis has some really dangerous crap going on in it. And I went out with them. We went dancing together, and I was wearing 22 karat gold jewelry with all my friends. And when I came out, went back to my the parking garage, and there were people there who I'm like, man, I can't go into that garage because I'm going to get robbed. I knew it. And so I went and found a police officer, and he escorted me to my car, because I said, I got gold on me. These people need drugs. I'm gonna be dead before I get to my car. So you have to think before you go into certain situations, travel situations, city situations, alone in the countryside, driving along, whatever it is. Be smart before you get to that situation, and then you're in better shape. Well, let me see. What was this? Amanda says, I've been told to raise hell because I want it to be as easy as possible and may leave you because you're making it too difficult. That is actually very true. If you make it easy, well, it's questionable. Again, if the person's dead, we never know if they raised hell or they didn't. Yeah, they prefer it easy. By the way, never scream fire. That's the dumbest thing ever. Because if you're in a building and scream fire, everybody runs away from you. Guys attacking you, fire! Everybody runs away because they don't want to get burned up. How stupid is that? You're out you're outside, fire! Everybody runs to look for the fire. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Say, call the police, help, I'm being raped. That would be more useful. Fire? Whoever started that idiocy? I mean, I have no idea that's ever worked, ever made any sense. The stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. And it goes, she does hide her money there. I can vouch for that. Oh, yes, Annie is wonderful. She went on the China-Mongolia trip with me, and we had a great time. Yes, I have used my boobs quite often for carrying of money because I just look like a fat American, so it really works out well. Okay, now I want to switch the subjects because you have talked about what are you studying? You're so fascinating, Gretchen. I just love it. You're studying.
I'm actually studying. I'm doing a master's degree in writing, in creative writing, and my last assignment was got me into sort of the whole Victorian sensationalism, the sensationalist writing that was so popular back then.
Wow.
And
wait a minute, Gretchen. I have to just come in and be really stupid.
Okay.
Pretend I'm not stupid. Okay. The Victorian era. Give me some time frame. Can you? Or should I just take this question?
Queen Victoria, so that would have been about sort of the 1800s up to, she died in 1901, I believe.
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
right around there.
Oh.
Yes, so, and actually, it's a really fascinating time because you've got a lot happening. You've got a lot of social change in the United States as well. You've got the women getting their rights to vote, just sort of the Victorian, Edwardian era. A lot of change, the onset of the world wars. And one of the things that's quite interesting about that time is that it was quite a highly literate society, even among the poorer classes.
Really?
And
why? Okay, wait a minute. Why was that? I just want to know, why would that be? Why would the 1800s usher that kind of thing in?
I honestly don't really know how it came about. I think most people, because they were working, maybe had to at least know how to read and write to a certain degree. I don't think anybody had, I don't think.
Is that the move away from farming, do you think, and ruralism?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
You had all these people living on the farms, moving to the cities.
Right.
Amanda just put in Dickens. Yes, Dickens is an interesting one because
Right.
a lot of his books were not written in book form.
Huh.
Or printed usually chapter by chapter in newspapers every week.
Right.
And then, he was the author, the father of the Clinton.
I have to interrupt just to say, one of my favorite books of all time is David Copperfield. Has the funniest drunk scene you'll ever read. Because he gets drunk for the first time, and he goes, oh, look, someone's fallen down the stairs. Oh, why? It seems to be me. It's absolutely great. It's like brilliant. The perfect, brilliant writing. David Copperfield is my favorite, absolutely my favorite. But go ahead. So I just have a thing for David Copperfield.
I forgot what I was thinking. Oh yeah, so but Dickens, his books were printed chapter by chapter. I think a lot of people couldn't afford a lot of books. So
what did they call them? Did they call them serials at the time or something else?
Serials, yeah.
They were called serials.
Yeah, serials.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, novelettes sometimes. Sometimes they put a few chapters in one, and a lot of people, the working class and stuff read a lot of that, and I find that era really, really interesting. I wrote just a short story. It was about a woman at that time who was having an affair, and she's kind of an aristocratic woman, not very nice. It's centered around Jack the Ripper, that era, and that's another interesting aspect. I loved your critique of Patricia Cornwell's book about how she tried to solve the Ripper case.
Yeah, and that really upset me because Patricia Cornwell, her style of writing is not my thing. Okay, it's not, but it's many people's thing, and they really enjoy her. What is it, Case Scarpetta? Is that correct? They really enjoy.
That's Case Scarpetta, yeah. Kathy Reichs is the other one.
They totally enjoy her fiction, but then one day, for whatever reasons, she decided to go Jack the Ripper true crime, and she spent a lot of money actually trying to prove this absolutely ludicrous theory. And I'm like, whoa, go back to fiction. Your fiction was fine. You're a millionaire from the fiction. But I think she got, fascinated. I can't blame her for that. You get fascinated by certain things. I think she got fascinated. But the traditional Jack the Ripper thing is always to pick the suspect. Always has the Jack that you're seeking always has to be somebody amazing, like the prince, and her theory is Walter Sickert, the artist, like that's not usually who kills off a bunch of prostitutes and on the street. It's not usually it, but it makes for a much more interesting story, shall we say. Gets more people's attention. I know I did the mystery files on Jack the Ripper. I went to London. I did a show on it, and it wasn't well received. And I feel sorry for the people who did the show because they really liked me and they liked my theory because I thought it was good, but it wasn't exciting because it wasn't a famous person. So I'm going to do a whole series on YouTube on Jack the Ripper because it is a fascinating case in the sense that it took over the minds of the people, and yet so it's turned into this outrageously, so many people are just there's so many sites, there's so many YouTube channels, there's so many, oh my God, Reddit all over the place. It's like with all these theories, like 30 different famous suspects in that mind, but but people can't let it go because there's never going to be proof of who did it. So it's all going to be a matter of what you think the evidence supports, what you're willing to believe. But so you're saying that, take me back there now. You're saying this, you think Jack the Ripper itself had an effect on people's interest in certain things at the time?
I think so. I think it was Bernard Shaw who said that one of the things that came about from Jack the Ripper was that the attention focused on the lives of the people in East London, because that's where it was happening and the appalling conditions that they were living under. So that was one of the, if you can say there's anything positive about that happening, that was one of them. That finally, people were going in there because police had to go and investigate, and people were, became fascinated with that. I remember you saying once about how today we seem to be very fascinated with crime, and we, due to the internet and things. And I think people have always been fascinated with it, but we have the better technology now. And I think the Victorian era and that is kind of proof of that, because people ate that up, and not everybody was sad about Jack the Ripper. And it's a horrible thing to think, but that idea of, he's just killing prostitutes, he's doing the city of London a favor. There was that mentality as well.
Well, also generally speaking, I think what happened is that the people that are doing the reading, because even though you say that people who weren't as highly educated were reading more these days, they were probably still people who maintained some kind of employment, not on the streets of London as prostitutes. So you could, this gave you a ringside seat to an exciting event that you weren't risking your life viewing. Kind of like, the Roman Colosseum in a sense, because, hey, I'm not a slave, so what do I care if they get eaten by lions, I'm having a damn good time. I'm not taking any risk, but I feel the adrenaline. So I think, and this is what we do today as well, which is we look at people's the crimes that happen to other people, And somehow it's interesting because those people really aren't different from us, quite frankly. So when we're looking at them, we're not going, oh, well, that couldn't happen to me. Actually, it could, because they're talking about somebody's wife who got murdered by her husband, or somebody who was, people are beeping in at me. That's because, you hear that beep? Does that come in on the, how do I ignore it? Decline. No, it's weird because, I have to put my phone on accept all calls so I can talk to you. And
Okay.
then I get all the annoying people, selling me crap people. I do need a new warranty for my car, yet for the 10th time today, But I think it's interesting how that's changed in a sense. The Jack the Ripper thing would put you at a level that's higher than the victim, right? So you're safe. Today, we seem to be very interested in people who, quite frankly, are no different from us. We're walking home from the store, we're being kidnapped and abducted and raped and murdered. I mean, a lot of the stories I talk about are people, could be me, could be my daughter, could be my grandchild. And when people say to me, what's the one thing that puts fear into your heart? And I always say, the one thing I never want to be is the mother or grandmother of one of those victims. I don't want the knock on the door. It horrifies me, absolutely horrifies me, because I know what these people go through. I do a lot of humor with my podcast. They call them podcasts or video. What do they call them? Vlogging. I don't know what they even call on YouTube, even though I've done it for a year. Anyway, for all my YouTube videos, I do a lot of humor because that's just me. But I know what these families go through, and I don't want to be one of them. I'm selfish. I do not want to be one of those families because I feel like it's possible. It really is possible. But I think with the Jack the Ripper era, you kind of felt you were safe. You could feel like you were in your privileged life, and okay, let's get fascinated by this because it's not going to happen to us.
Yeah.
I wonder
You're
if
not
that
going to go to that end of London, and he kind of stuck to one sort of area of the city,
Yeah.
so you would know. Well, don't go there.
Well, also they were all
there at
prostitutes.
night.
They were prostitutes, so it's not a case of even just a woman walking home from work, or a woman going shopping or something like that. It was literally they were.
Or he thought they were. I think there was one that might not have been. But
Are we talking about
thought they
Mary?
were because, yeah.
Okay, Mary. What's her last name? Bell? Was it Bell? I forgot. I'm going to talk about that when I do my show. I don't believe she was a victim of Jack the Ripper at all. I think that's.
Oh, okay.
I think that was a cop. I think it was somebody she knew who was killing her in a way that would replicate Jack the Ripper, so he would not be charged with a crime or suspected. I do not think she had any. She was not one of the Ripper victims. That's my personal opinion. So, but she's been grouped in, and there's no proof that she's one of them. So, kind of funny that they did that. So tell me, okay, so you're studying the Victorian era, and
I did for this last one. My final project is actually and I'll probably carry this over into the second year of my course. Is I'm looking at kind of retelling A Tale of Two Cities through the eyes of Madame Defarge, who was one of the big revolutionaries, and looking at, was she a revolutionary, or was she just so, was she so full of hatred she just wanted to kill by the end of it? She wasn't really caring about advancing the cause of the poor people of France at all. She just wanted to kill as many rich people as she could.
Wow.
What made that happen?
Wait, I have to stop. Wait, I have to ask this question before I forget it, because I don't remember things longly. Longly? Is that even a word? Longly? Okay. What got you interested in literature and writing and doing a master's degree in this particular thing? I'm really curious.
I've always loved creative writing and creating
Really?
stories, and I love history as well, and literature, and I'm a history teacher, so I don't know if I brought that up.
The what?
No, I'm a history teacher.
Oh, no, you did not bring that up. You're a history, okay, you're an actual history teacher. So, and you teach history where?
I teach it to high school kids, middle and high school kids. I teach it. It's actually an online school. It's a virtual school. We serve mostly. We have a wide range of students. Some have needs where they can't go into a traditional classroom. Some just
Homeschoolers.
Everything. Yeah, homeschoolers and things like that.
You know, I
During
homeschooled
the
all my
pandemic.
children, so, you know, I'm a big homeschooler.
Oh, wow.
All the way through.
Fantastic. Yeah,
All three, all the way through. And I homeschooled my granddaughter during the pandemic, so I'm a big homeschooling fan. So they would have loved you as a teacher, because you know, you're actually interesting. No, I mean, you know, it's like you talk to some people like, I'm not taking that class.
And you have to with history, because history can be great, or it can be just like the driest subject on the planet. 'Cause I remember
Absolutely.
in university having to read all these old, really boring history books. I thought, oh, why did I choose this?
Okay, wait,
But
now I
having
got to
to teach
stop
it
you
makes
again.
it-
I mean, I have to stop you
Okay.
again so I don't forget the question. What is your favorite historical book?
Oh, goodness. I think possibly A Tale of Two Cities. I love
Really?
that one.
Okay.
I love The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas.
Uh-huh.
That is one of my absolute favorites.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of an adventure. But it's
Okay.
kind of a romance story as well. Yeah, I think those two really stick out in my mind. But I've read a lot of them, and that kind of changes over time. I kind of change favorite historical eras. I used to be the Renaissance, but now I love the sort of suffragette era, learning about the social changes that happened at the time and how women got the
Interesting.
right to vote in Britain, but also in Britain and America. It happened at about the same time. So I think it was 1920 in the United
Right.
States, and Britain.
And it was Weimar in Germany.
Yeah, as well in the Weimar
Which-
Republic in Germany, and then
Very
until Hitler came and kind
bizarre happenings. It's like some kind of mental thing just took over the world. It's like, whoosh.
yeah, I think the World Wars helped as well.
I could, you know, it's interesting because there's I have two favorite books. One is fiction, which is Moby Dick, and I never thought I would find a book about whale hunting. Something I give a crap about, you know what I mean? I'm not big into boats. I'm not big into hunting. I'm like, how many times are they going to be in the damn doldrums, you know, out there on that damn boat, and that boat isn't moving? That was one of the most fascinating books, because not only was the story great and the writer was awesome, but I learned so much about why they hunted whales and how the necessities that especially for the UK, that they needed the things from the whales, like to light all the lamps, you know. And I think
Yeah,
I
the
never
oil, yeah.
thought that the whale oil was like that would like make the world run like gas does today, like gasoline, like oil does today. But then it was whales. That was one of my favorites. The other one was it's called The Washing of the Spears, and it was about Shaka Zulu in South Africa. And
right, okay.
it's a great book, and that's a nonfiction. And I'm like, I learned so much, because you know, we're often in our worlds. You know, I'm a U.S. citizen, so there's that, and then there's a European. And I spent a lot of time in India, so I'm learning more about India. And I spent time in Mexico, so I'm learning more about the Mayans and the Aztecs and all that. And I have been to Africa, but I haven't been to South Africa. So when I learned about Shaka Zulu and the Mfecane, I'm like, how fascinating is this to see how things happen, you know, and what one event, one thing can then, it turns into like a tidal wave. And I think 1 million people died during the Mfecane. I may not be pronouncing that even correctly. But Shaka Zulu is a super fascinating man, and a brilliant tactician as far as war went. Brilliant. He developed all kinds of new methodologies for war, but he was a kind of like insane. So he had a few problems, as many megalomaniac type things that we see happening. And such a fascinating history. And I just wish more people would be interested in history. And you know, I wrote the book The Murder of Cleopatra after I did a show
I was
for
just going to
Discovery.
go to that.
And again, it's just like a whole period of time which has been misrepresented for 2,000 years, because the writers were suck-ups to the Romans, essentially. So, but you know, I find that interesting that, you know, when you get into it, you start seeing how things play out and how the world changes by each one of the things. And even crime changes with eras. It really does. And it changes with culture. And so when you look back in the Victorian times, did you see a particular criminal element that was rolling around at that time besides Jack? I mean, is there somebody else? Some other issues of criminal
I remember
behaviors?
hearing about it seems like a lot of the crimes were particularly gruesome. There was one called the acid bath killer. I think that might have been a little bit after.
Mary.
It was a man that did it, and he would basically, that's what he did. He would dissolve the bodies in acid, and it wasn't until they found gallstones from somebody that they caught him, and I can't remember the name of the person, but it was sort of like post-Victorian, and I thought, yeah, this is in England, and you think the English are so polite. No.
Well, you know.
They're just as twisted as we are.
Whenever you have psychopaths, they kind of don't care what the societal rules are. They've got things they got to get done. You know, and acid has always been very, very useful. You know, barrels you can stuff people into. It really works.
Yeah, I think that's what he did.
Oh, did he?
There were certain things that they couldn't quite dissolve all the way, like a couple of labels from clothing. I mean, you know, he got sloppy towards the end, and I can't.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens because I try to be really careful myself, but you know.
Feel those barrels in
that
the
barrel over there.
You know? How are you to know they had gallstones? Oh, darn.
But was there, one of the things I'm curious about the Victorian era was each one of the eras does seem to have a certain level of crimes that come with it. Not the psychopaths. I'm not talking about the psychopath, serial killer, weirdo dudes, but I'm talking about the levels of crime that sometimes sort of sweep. Like, for example, you know, poor Mexico. I love Mexico dearly, and you know, people are afraid to go to Mexico because they hear about the cartels and how dangerous they are. And I've been to Mexico and never felt in danger once. I mean, I think it's a wonderful country. Had a fabulous time there.
I lived there for a year.
Oh, did you?
I taught in an international school in Mexico for a year, and in Mexico City. And yeah, you know, you had to be careful, like you said. You know,
Mexico City's fabulous. Wait, isn't it a great city?
I loved it.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
love that city. So in general, most people don't experience the cartels. You know, you're living your normal lives unless you live in the cartel area. But cartels have become a massive issue because there's so much money in drugs. So they take over having, the same thing will happen to Colombia, you know, and you know, when you get somebody very powerful that can take over, then they can start controlling the government, and they can start controlling the media. And Pablo Escobar. By the way, if you want to see something on Pablo Escobar, I should put that below. Don't watch the stupid American versions of it. There's a great one out of Colombia. It's called Pablo Escobar, el Patron del Mal. Oh my God. That dude who plays him, I mean, he is so close to the real guy. It's unbelievable. It's fabulously done. It's just one of the most interesting crime shows, you know, pseudo documentary that I ever see. But it shows how much of an effect it had on the country. And so Mexico too is now suffering from the cartels, and our southern border is the same way. So I'm curious, during the Victorian times, do you know of anything that was like endemic as far as crime went? I mean, was there problems with massive fraud, or was there a petty crime? Do you know what went on during that era?
Guess would be petty crime, because there was so much poverty. Because the Victorian society, I mean, it was you had a very small aristocratic class at the top, about 5%, and then you had a tiny middle class. You know, it's not like today where I believe the middle class is probably still the largest class. Right. Everybody's claiming
so it was
kind of
like aristocrats, middle class
people
the
that
rest
had
of
maybe
them.
like, you know, and the rest of it are sort of working class and poor.
Right.
So yeah, I would think petty crime would have been most of it. You know, also had Queen Victoria, who was, you know, the Victorian values, and this is this you know, ideal that women were supposed to live up to be, you know, beautiful, and you know, kind of a you know, like for their husbands, so they could take them out, and you know, people would be, you know, proud, you know, the husband, a trophy kind of. That's the word I'm looking for. Goodness.
Would you have made a good Victorian lady?
Oh God, no. Absolutely not. We were talking about that with the girls, and we were looking at some pictures of magazines. Like, they had magazines back then, and a lot of the ads and articles were like, it was thought that all women wanted, and that this was their natural role, to be wives, mothers, cooks, and that was it. What do you need an education for? Beyond maybe just reading and writing, you're just going to be a wife and a mother. And they thought that that's what women always thought about. So this whole idea, and some of the literature was actually geared toward that for a while. So probably everybody just got so bored with it that they say, "Oh God."
Well, if you don't have other options, options, you have to do well with the option that you have. I think a lot of people forget about that, and why people sort of went along with the program, essentially, because it's hard to go against the grain when the grain has. The grain is like this, and your chances of succeeding against the grain are like this. So you can either fight to, let's say, be a female whatever in the Victorian age, some kind of working person, or you can get better clothes and a better umbrella. And because,
and hope you get a good husband, because women were viewed as the property of their husband back then, and I believe it's true in America as well. After a certain time, so they had to obey. I even tell when we did our little suffragette unit with my students, I said the marriage vows are even written that way: it's to love, honor, and obey.
That is correct. That has kind of really been the obey part. It flew out the window. Out of there. But it's interesting.
Well, can't they get a divorce? And I said divorce was incredibly rare. It was incredibly costly. And there was such a stigma to a divorce that even the upper classes didn't want to do it because it would ruin their reputations. They just kind of stuck it out. But they had better means at their disposal to entertain themselves than sort of the poor and the working class. So that, because like domestic violence, there probably was a lot of that going on, but it wasn't considered a crime because a woman was the property of her husband.
And you didn't obey, so you deserve what you got. It's interesting about... There's this, this would be a great book, and I've never thought of writing it, and I'm probably never going to do it. So somebody else do this. But crimes across different societies, different cultures, different countries, when it comes down to females, it's interesting how the crimes have a lot to do with what the relationship is between the males and the females in that country at that time. So there are, for example, one of the things we're having in America right now is we have an incel issue. So we have guys who can't seem to get a woman, right? And they get very angry about this. So they go online to join incel groups. And we had this guy in, I think it was Atlanta, Georgia, who went and shot up the prostitute, four different massage parlors. They claimed it was a hate crime, but his hate was mostly about, it wasn't about Asian women. It just happened, these happened to be Asian parlors mostly, but his hatred was against women who wouldn't sleep with him. So, that he was an incel and he had to go pay for it. That was what he was mad about. And so he has interesting crimes that come out of these certain eras. So that may be one crime that's come out of this era. And in Victorian times, the crimes could be maybe more internal, the more higher domestic abuse crimes, and we certainly see that in certain countries where women lack rights. So the domestic crimes can be horrific. They can be honor crimes and things like that, because a person thinks that this is acceptable. This is an acceptable thing to do, or this is what we have to do. And so across time, we have very fascinating crimes against women that change with culture and what the going issue is. And so, during Victorian times.
I love your show about India, about the girl and the boyfriend that were attacked on the bus. I thought that was heartbreaking to sit and listen to what they did to her, but how the people of India finally came out, and the women were saying, hey,
this is not acceptable.
Educating the men in this country, not telling us that we need to cover ourselves up.
Well, it wasn't even so much. It wasn't even so much the covering issue. Because I spend a lot of time in India. I usually wear salwar kameezes and saris. I do cover to some extent because I think this stuff is prettier, and quite frankly, I think America's a little...
Oh, the colors are amazing.
And I don't really think that we have to show our bodies off as much as America likes to do, so we all look like sluts and hoes. But anyway, But I think they have prettier clothing for ladies, makes them look more feminine and beautiful and just pretty, And yet, India is not so shy about, like, the stomach is shown in a sari, you know what I mean? The abdomen is shown, and it's not like they're seriously sensual clothing, you know what I mean? So it's not like that.
Yeah.
And most people don't wear their heads covered unless you're going to a temple or unless you're Muslim. And then even in India, a lot of Muslims in India don't cover their heads on a normal basis, only when they go into a mosque or something and worship. So that's not really it. That's not really the problem. The real problem is the inability for a good many men to get the women they want. It's not so much that they can't get women, but the women they want. And this is an interesting problem. We have crime problems all the time because of this, where your desires are up here, but your finances are down here. Why? It's like, that's why people steal crap, because they can't pay for it, and they'd rather steal it because then they can have it. They see other people have it and they don't have it, and they want it. So with women in certain countries, it's like, well, what I'm seeing on TV, I'm seeing in the movies, is these gorgeous women, and some handsome guy gets that woman, and I'm this guy from a small village, and first of all, there aren't enough women around, and I don't have any money, and I'm not good looking, and I can't get women except for a few. I can pay some prostitutes, so I can't really get anything. And then the other guy said, well, I do have something. I got a wife, but damn, she doesn't look like that. And now they're all on the bus, and here comes the college girl who's very attractive and lively and all that stuff, and they're like, we can't get that. And so there becomes a rage thing, where I want to get what I think other people are getting a chance to get, especially wealthier people. So we've always had a little bit of that, I think, in every country. How did the people in the Victorian era, how did the poor people feel about the lesser poor people in the Victorian era? Did they act out? Did they commit crimes against them?
How did they? Oh, that's an excellent question. I'm not sure that they would.
I'm sure they did. The question is how.
Yeah, I suppose it's a matter of survival. And if you were really sort of at the bottom rungs of society, then you would survive any way in your house, stealing from your employer if you had a job.
That's an interesting point.
I don't know that the poor necessarily look down on the poor so much, but I don't think they would be about stealing from each other.
Well, wasn't that one of the eras of the horrible debtor prisons, where basically if you can pay your bills?
Yes, it was the workhouses. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I remember one of my favorites, Dickens' Christmas Carol, when Ebenezer Scrooge says, "Are there no workhouses? Why are you begging money from me? Stick them in a workhouse."
It's interesting how across time too. Yeah, the way we've treated people who've committed crimes is often whether we can understand their purpose for committing crimes, or we think they don't have the right to commit crime for whatever it is, whatever the reason is. In other words, for me, myself, I have to admit, somebody steals bread for their children, I get it. If somebody steals some Nike shoes, I'm sorry, I have no sympathy.
My mother said that once. She was made this comment about during Hurricane Katrina, how a lot of the supermarkets just told people, come in and take what you need. Just it's food, it's going to rot, take it.
Right.
But, and some people did, a lot of them did. But then you also saw people running away with sort of like flat screen television and things like that. So it's like, well, what good is that going to do?
Well, it's interesting. During the Katrina thing, this is something that really bugged me. I never heard people talk about it, but it drove me nuts. So remember when they were all in the arena and they were being given food? Yes. Their bitch was, did I probably got demonetized. Okay, they were complaining. They were complaining about not getting hot food. I'm like, you do know that hot food is not necessary for survival. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, that's your complaint. If I'm sitting in an arena and I need to eat, you can give me whatever you can give me. I'll take a sandwich after a sandwich after a sandwich after a sandwich. Do I really have to complain that the food wasn't hot? If it sustains you, it sustains you. It doesn't matter if it's hot or not. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, boy, really, that's what, you're a whiny bunch of people. You're getting free food under circumstances that are very difficult, and your complaint is that the food isn't hot. like, I'm sorry we didn't give you a steak dinner with a baked potato. I found that fascinating, but I think that mentality also has an effect on crime, because we see people who do not need the things they steal, but they steal them anyway, because they think they should have the right to them, or because they think they have to have something that's this level and not this level. I mean, I spent most of my children's formative years shopping in thrift stores. My children never have forgiven me. But okay, so I was like, look, it's 25 cents. Here's your shirt. We did not have fancy clothes. And we were homeschoolers, so most of our homeschooling friends also had the same. We would go to the thrift store, and I'm like, hi, Mary, hi, Jane, So we all had the same clothes from the thrift store, and all the other things, the games and the books and the furniture. My husband bought something. He bought these great shoes once, right? He was so proud of those shoes. They were expensive shoes.
Stores. We have really great ones here in England.
I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
But so there are things you can get
bought it secondhand. Who cares?
You don't have to steal, because you can get a whole lot of stuff for very, very cheap. I just want to tell you a story about my husband. So anyway, he's so proud of these shoes. He was like, oh, look, I got these really cool shoes. He goes to work, and he's sitting there. He's all proud. Somebody's like, oh, those are really nice shoes, right? And then he crossed his legs, and on the bottom of the shoe was 50 cents.
Oh, we didn't take the price tag.
He forgot. There's a crayon on the bottom of the shoe. He didn't know it. It's like 50 cents. He said, man, then somebody went, you paid 50 cents, man. I said, this is like going home. But there are ways.
Stepped on a price tag by accident or something.
Yeah, when you take the price tags off, because they got these little like, usually like little papers on here, they put them on with safety pins. So my friends would say something like, oh, that's a nice shirt. Take the pin off. Oh, shoot, I left the pin on. I took the tag off, left the pin on. Yeah. Oh my God! But we had a sense of humor about it. We were thrilled that we had been given a way to be able to support our families with the things they needed, and be able to stay home and homeschool. But it's interesting, a lot of people do not think that that's good enough, so then they get into theft. And we have right now in the United States, we have a massive problem with shoplifting, that people are shoplifting like you wouldn't believe. They just walk into a store, they just grab stuff up in bags and just walk straight out the front door, because in certain places in the United States now, if they steal under $1,000, they pretty much get a slap on the wrist. So they're stealing like you wouldn't believe, because they can. And again, these are people who are walking in who are well fed. They have a place to live. They don't need they're taking the stuff to their car. You know what I mean? So, and then they tell people on their iPhone, yeah, just stole this crap. So they don't really need the stuff. It's not like a matter of life and death, but they feel entitled to it. So a lot of times crime, and all the different eras, there's two versions of it. One is crime committed because people are desperate, and there's the other crime committed because people feel like they deserve it. And even if they have money, like, I've always wondered, a person already has like a nice home, they're making $100,000 a year, but they still need to embezzle. So they embezzle another $100,000. I'm like, you needed to embezzle when you already had all that money? Why did you feel a need to go up and one more level? What was the reason behind that? But I think it happens in every era, so I find it fascinating. But
do you think it's that need for more? Like we hear something we always want more. That kind of thing that's been ingrained in us. We can't just be happy with what we have.
I guess it's a very terrible human issue if that's so, because there's one thing to want more, it's another thing to realize it's not necessarily necessary. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, it'd be nice to have a little more money, but then again we can go, do I really need it to the point where I have to commit a crime?
Yeah.
That becomes the case. Besides Jack the Ripper, do you know of any other, and the acid baths, any other crimes in the era that you're interested in that are really?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any specific. Let's pick one.
Don't you hate the top of the head?
Agatha Christie. Oh, I know. I'm sure
Don't ask me that.
Finish the conversation. There'll be about 900 of them that pop into my head. Like
show number 2, Gretchen. Yeah. You get to come back.
We're still talking.
You get to come back. Oh, wait a minute.
Good,
Hold on. Good. Wait a minute. I have to go back here. Betty, you think Jack the Ripper was a local butcher?
Wasn't that one of the theories, though? Because
it's my theory.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely my theory. That is absolutely correct.
Because somebody had some, he obviously had a knowledge of how to cut things. And,
yes, and the fact is that
surgeon, but it was too.
He was my belief was he was a local butcher. He lived in the area. He had access to the women. He was going to prostitutes, and he. If he had blood on his shirt, who gave a crap? He was a butcher, right? And he could remove their parts and take them back to his butcher shop, and nobody would be the wiser. So yes, that was what I did with the mystery files. I went to London, and we went through the whole thing, and I told them that's who I thought it was. But I'm going to do a see, Benny and I agree. Yes, Mary Jane Kelly was not the work of Jack the Ripper. Absolutely not. So I'm going to do a series on YouTube on Jack the Ripper, because Mystery Falls, was a great show, but it's a while back now, and again, it wasn't super popular because it was a theory people didn't like, because it wasn't as exciting, but it's more realistic. I'm a realist, so I'm like, hey, sorry I didn't come up with the prince, but it's not the prince. It's not Walter Sickert the artist. It's just not. It's not any famous doctor. It's like the local dude down the block,
the corner butcher.
The local butcher, yeah. And also, by the way, I believe he was a Jewish butcher, which has actually nothing to do with the issue, except that even at that, certain people don't these days want to say that, because then they're afraid it sounds bad. It's like, people are just whatever they are. It has nothing to do with necessarily the crime, and so. But I will do a series on that, because I do want to go into Jack the Ripper, but I have to go back over all my.
A kind of attitude of anti-Semitism at the time as well,
which has and it kind of runs. It kind of is a thread that runs through a lot of history, and so like right now, if you just say that guy happened to be, he was a butcher that happened to be Jewish. That's all it was. It wasn't a Jewish butcher. It was a butcher that happened to be Jewish. But that's not popular, because it becomes an issue for people, because it becomes a political issue. And I say this, myself being my father's from a Jewish line. My grandparents were on the last ship that got out of Germany in the Nazi era, and they survived. And some of my relatives did not. And my mother was probably on the Mayflower, because she was from New England, and her history goes way back, way back. So I'm thinking she was on the Mayflower or one of the boats that came after that. And so then they met in New York City and got married and had a baby. But I come from I have a lot of different interesting backgrounds, and I married a Jamaican, so then I went that direction. So I don't hold any culture above any other culture. I just understand history and the way people sometimes, how politics interacts with things. And this is not a political show, so I don't get into that, but it was a problem when I was doing the Jack the Ripper thing, because it wasn't as cool a thing to say, because that became an issue. So it's just one of those those problems. I want to point out what Lisa has to say here. Lisa says, amazed to hear what you're planning to do with the Tale of Two Cities novels. I'm a big fan of the Flashman books, great historical fiction from the Victorian era. Do you know the Flashman books?
I don't, but I'm going to have to look those up.
You don't? Okay. I don't know. What are those? Lisa, what the heck are Flashman books? Do tell me. And also apparently Gretchen. What is that? I like that Lisa S says, I love everybody getting a chance at the call-ins to learn about each other. This is what is so cool about, that's why I want my community here. That's why I like the Patreon community. Because, a lot of people who do YouTube don't have this kind of community, and it's just open to all my videos open to everybody, but it's really nice to have a special community of people who are really truly interested in getting to know each other. And it's my community too. So And Lisa N says, Lisa S, yes, it's really good to hear about everyone's background and what brings them here. Yes, okay. I don't know. We haven't got an answer from. Hi, Amanda, by the way. Amanda's here too. Dickens. I thought she said chickens. That's funny. I was looking at Amanda and she said Dickens. I'm like, chickens? We have chickens, but what are we talking about chickens for? No.
I actually have chickens. I have chickens. I have a little garden bird sanctuary. I kind
Do
of
you?
rescue ex-caged hens. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
It's gotten a bit more than I wanted. I've got 2 geese now, and I've got some ducks. And I've told everybody, please don't bring me any more birds.
Oh my God! Yeah, we have 4 hens. We had 4 hens and a rooster, but something happened to our rooster, and now we have 4 new chicks, which are now in the next pen over, and they're fluffing up and growing around. We're hoping there's a rooster in there because we'd like to work with the rooster from when he's young, because this other rooster was vicious. I mean, I couldn't open the door; the thing would attack me. I was the nastiest rooster ever. But I missed the all hours.
Oh yeah, I've got one. I've got a. They call them cockerels over here, but yeah, rooster. And he's a real character.
How cool!
Such a character. But yeah, my neighbors sometimes are saying, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's going, and I'm like, oh God, okay, I'll put him in the shed.
Well, it's funny because we have a house here, right? We have this field, right? And at the other side of the field was Uncle Pete. Okay, it was it was kind of like a family compound for many years. So it used to be tobacco farmers. Anyway, so Uncle Pete lived in this big white house there, right? Well, Uncle Pete decided to go to Florida and get warm. I can't blame him. He retired, and they sold the house. And after they sold the house, I'm like looking at my daughter going, do the people who bought the house know the bedroom is right next to the field animals, which includes a donkey that brays at 2 o'clock in the morning underneath their window? Because I can hear the donkey from my bedroom, and I'm far on the other side of my daughter's house. I'm like, that donkey, Jitterbug, Annie knows Jitterbug. She's been here to see Jitterbug. Jitterbug is very loud. And I'm like, does she know? Do they know? And my daughter goes, well, they should figure that out before they move in. I'm like, yeah, but do they know? Because it would be really not good if they moved there and then they were really upset about it. Well, it turned out these people love Jitterbug. And the daughter comes over and takes care of the llamas and the alpacas and the horse and the donkey. And now, guess what? I'm over there feeding the donkey one day and the horses and everything. And I hear this, coming from their house. Not our house. And I'm like, do they have a rooster? Turns out they have chickens and a rooster now. So great neighbors, It's like we couldn't have gotten luckier.
Great.
I mean, so they could have been really nasty about our animals,
Yeah.
But they were cool. So but you have a little garden.
Really
Wait a minute, you said you have a little garden, Gretchen. So you have this little teeny.
Yep.
And you have a rooster in there?
And the birds have half of it. The birds own half of it, and they
and your neighbor's right there.
More of it. What's that?
And so you're here, and your neighbor's right here, hearing the rooster.
Yep.
Oh boy.
They've been actually really good about it. It's only when he really goes off. It's worse in the summertime because the sun comes up so early.
Yeah, but roosters don't care about the sun. They crow all night long. I always thought the rooster crowed at dawn, but I found out that wasn't true. They just crow whenever they feel like it. It's like,
okay.
There could be a rooster crime in the future. Chicken crime.
That could be probably mine.
Okay, I want to go to. Okay, so we had on your list. I know we have 4 things on your list. You said 4. So there was Victorian era.
Oh yeah.
And there was the martial arts. And what else did you have on your list? Oh, wait a minute. Linda says Flashman. Okay. Very easy read and bawdy and funny, but full of fascinating details about the actual British colonial wars and expansion.
Oh, okay. The Empire. So they're the Empire. Oh, yeah.
I think it must be a different era, but very interesting.
They're very. Now, Queen Victoria was. She was queen during the height of the British Empire. It used to be that the British Empire was the biggest empire in the world. They had the saying that the sun never set on the British Empire because it extended all the way across. They had India, Australia, South Africa.
Amazing.
The problem was it just got too big to control. Kind of like the Romans as well. They got a bit too big to control.
Yeah, that's usually what goes. That's usually when everything goes to hell.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. is on that.
Yeah, it could be.
You know, at some point,
we don't want to get political, but
at some point you implode. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
the way the world, you know, it's the way things work. But what's number 3 on your list?
I had written down. It was the prison when I used to. Like I mentioned, I worked in prisons for a while, and I was on about the Innocence Project that when we were talking before the show, and I used to work. I was a teacher. I worked in the education division of prisons.
The education division of prisons. Okay, so this was in the UK or the US?
The UK.
This was in the UK.
One is I worked in what's called a secure unit, and that's for young offenders, young people. So they still have to go to school. And also, but I did do sort of casual work in what they call a Class A prison, which is sort of like your maximum security adult prison.
Right.
And I actually found them easier to teach than the kids in the prison. But
they want to please you because they're psychopaths. They want to take advantage of you. And maybe you can spring them from prison and go on an 11-day vacation and give them sex. So.
Oh yeah, like the guard that you said. Yeah. Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
There's an opportunity there.
Children are just annoying. They don't want to be there. Yeah.
Well, yeah. They talk about like the Innocence Project and them getting people out of prison, and I think that's just so horrible. And well, if they're innocent, yeah. But I've worked inside of the prison, and yeah, okay, I've met some kids that maybe were in there because they did something stupid and they got caught. But that's really rare. Most of them are probably in there because they need to be in there. Sorry, but
anybody, I like how you point that out, Gretchen, because so many people who have never dealt with that element have a lot more softness in their hearts because they don't believe it really is the way it is. I think once you've worked in it, you become quite a realist. It's not that you don't want people to have rights. It's not that you don't want.
Oh yeah.
I want the system to work properly. And if the Innocence Project would actually get out just people who are innocent, I would not have an issue. And if they would say, I don't think this dude is innocent, but I don't like how the government handled the case because that was incorrect. In other words, if they broke the law, even if he's guilty, if they broke the law, they can't do that. So they want to say, look, I know the dude's not innocent, but we still want to fight for him because of this, because we don't want the law to be misused this way. We want the justice system to be proper. I'm okay with that. But they keep saying people are innocent who aren't innocent, and they're getting them out on technicalities, and they're hiding the truth about them. And that really upsets me because I'm like, fight the system is fine, but don't put guilty people on the street and claim they're innocent, because then that's just plain out a lie, and it really offends me. But so many people fall for it because the Innocence Project has the media on their side. So if anybody who gets out of prison,
we love a good story.
Oh my God! And then you have to see to find out that they're not innocent. Takes a whole hell of a lot of work. I mean, sometimes I've had to Google my brains out to try to find. Oh, look, this is an appeal. Oh my God, that's what the guy did. It's like there were like 40 pieces of evidence against him, and it was clearly the guy who committed the crime.
The Innocence Project only had to get people out that were actually innocent. They'd had very little to do because being inside a prison, I think you'll realize that, most of these people belong here.
Yeah.
Stop doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, and people will honestly believe that there are like thousands of people being railroaded right and left, and it's not the way it really works. There are people, I point this out, I have cases where I know the guy who is convicted of it was not the guy who committed the crime. He was still a murdering psychopath, mind you. He just wasn't that murdering psychopath. So
wasn't Stephen Avery the one that is that the example you were talking about? How maybe he might have been innocent in that one case, but he's still a murdering psychopath.
Right? Yes, because Stephen Avery. Yeah, what happened with Stephen Avery was that Stephen Avery was known as a sexual psychopath at the time he was arrested for the first crime, which was a rape, not a murder. And the woman identified him, and the police already knew him as a creepy sexual psychopath type, right? He'd already had bizarre behavior. And when the woman identified him, they went, Eureka, we got him. Turned out that the guy who actually did the rape looked just like Stephen Avery. I mean, it could have been his twin,
Oh,
you know. So it was
hard
one of
luck.
those unfortunate. Wow, you know, that sucked. You had a doppelganger, you know, and so yes, he was wrongly convicted of a crime because he had the same exact behaviors as the real guy, and he looked just like him. So yes, he should not have been convicted because it was incorrect. But it was not because people keep thinking, oh, they just railroaded him because they wanted to. No, no, no. They really thought it was him. And then because he was actually a sexual psychopath, when they let him out, he proved that he was a sexual psychopath, and he killed an innocent woman. And now people, because of the first crime, say, oh, see, they railroaded him on that, therefore they railroaded him on this. And that's just not true. I mean, Stephen Avery is a serial killer. If he hadn't gotten convicted on the second crime, he'd be out there killing more women. He's a serial killer. So he's a horrible human being. But there are guys who, I have a case which I want to get a FOIA request on, and I have to wait a few years. But anyway, I know the guy who committed the crime did not commit that crime. I have like 2 or 3 cases. 3 cases. I have 3 cases, maybe 4, in my time, which I know the guy convicted did commit the crime. Now, one of the guys was a serial rapist who was in prison for life. He's a sexual predator. He's a horrible human being. He deserves to be in prison for life, but he didn't commit the crime they added on, you know, because they just wanted to close that case. That's the problem. And the real killer of the person is still out there. So in other words, there's two serial killers, or one is a serial predator, the other one was a serial killer. So sexual predator, serial rapist, serial killer. One guy's a serial rapist, the other guy's a serial killer. They left the serial killer out there. So that's my concern, not so much sometimes because the guy they convicted was, I don't really feel sorry for him, you know what I mean? But I'm concerned that you left the real guy out there. But the Innocence Project there's certain things the Innocence Project doesn't care about, you know, because they're an agenda organization. They're against the death penalty and against, generally speaking, against the government. So they aren't necessarily concerned about truth and justice. They're concerned about agenda. And that's frustrating because, you know, I wish they were just doing what they should be doing. You know what I mean? Because once in a while they're right. And I'm like, okay, that time they're right. You know? And I approve of that. But it's frustrating. Oh, look, Benny has some questions. Let's see.
Oh.
Benny says, he's getting personal. Gretchen. Am I doing a good imitation, Benny? Do you have any children? And if yes, do they live in UK or the US?
I don't have children, no. My pets are my children.
Oh, your pets. The chickens and the roosters.
And 4 cats.
Uh-oh, your turn. Oh, no, a cat lady. Do you want...
that's what everything
Wait.
You're
Gretchen.
a crazy cat lady.
Gretchen, do you want 5 cats? Can
I love cats.
Can you take my cat Ziggy, please? Ziggy is the worst cat that ever existed. I think it's under my feet. Right? Ziggy is the worst cat ever. Of all my cats I've ever had in my life, Ziggy is a horror. Ziggy is... There it is. Oh, it's over there. Okay. Terrible cat. But none of your animals commit crimes, so that's a good thing. Benny asked another question. Pat, the Lynn family murders. Do you consider the uncle as a serial killer or a mass murderer? He's a mass murderer and a family annihilator. He's not a serial killer is somebody who has time in between the killings. He kills and then he gets time down. He kills again, and usually it's for pleasure. Usually it's for fun. Okay, not like for example, an assassin is not necessarily a serial killer. He's a psychopath, a murdering psychopath, but he's being hired to kill people and making money. But a serial killer does it because it brings him pleasure and thrills and rage against society. But the mass murderer shovels it all into one moment. But the Lynn family murders was more of a family annihilation, that he got rid of everybody who he found had more than him in life. Midlife crisis. They had everything. He didn't have enough, and if he could get rid of them, he'd be the top dog. So mass murderer. and yes, he's a family annihilator. He did commit a mass murder, but he's a family annihilator as well. Why do judges allow plea deal confessions? I'm not sure, like what? Mostly because it's easier to simply get the case under control. Because first of all, I can't judge the juries, can't trust the jury system. As we know, I love the jury system so much.
I agree with you on that.
Thank you. Oh, I want to hear this, Gretchen.
I think you're
okay, guys. I didn't ask Gretchen to talk about this, but
wonderful.
Okay. But $10 to you.
But when you made that analogy about, what was it, university, and you've got to comment, about, you've got to get this exactly right or you're out of school, and that's essentially what we do to jurors. We're making them make judgments on things that they have quite possibly no knowledge of.
Correct.
So,
almost always no knowledge of.
Fair. Yeah, almost always no knowledge of, yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's not their fault.
Yeah,
can I imagine if they decided, oh my God, we're going to have to figure out how to, I always point this like a rocket, down at NASA, and they're going to try to determine whether the engines are properly calibrated. So they pick me and 11 other people off a bus stop.
People are going to die.
They're going to. I'm going to go, okay, well, why don't you parade your bunch of experts out here, and they can all tell me different stories, because they're never going to agree. And I'm going to be the one who is going to determine over those experts which expert is right. How does that make any sense? I mean, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. If I don't go to school, at college, and study physics and become a rocket scientist, I have no business trying to determine anything. I mean, honestly, God, I can hardly make the YouTube show work. I have problems with technicalities here. You're going to tell me, I'm going to sit here and listen to a bunch. Well, the thrust elements. I mean, I know the word thrust. I don't know what it means. The compounding. I'm not going to sit there. First of all, it's boring as hell. I don't know how people make it through these trials. Boring trials.
My mom was on a jury, and it was a long time ago, and it was a murder case as well, I believe. And it was, so it wasn't like, I don't want to say interesting case, but it was a pretty high sort of profile case for our city. Oh, and she hated it. And I think when we were talking about professional juries once, somebody made the comment that most jurors just want to get out of there. And she's like, that's absolutely right. We just want it to get over and done with as quickly as possible. It was horrible.
Well, one of the problems with the whole thing is they start out by this. So, Dr. Henry Lee, you're a forensic psychologist, is that correct? Yes, it is. All right. Can you tell us your background? What is your education? Now we're going to get to hear Dr. Henry Lee's education for the next how long? And then they're going to ask him, oh my God, it goes on for like half a day, what they want to tell the credentials. And nobody understands the credentials anyway, because that's another thing nobody understands. So they're all falling asleep now. And then they finally get to what he's going to say. And then he says whatever he's going to say, which none of them have studied. They have absolutely no background in it. And they're supposed to be able to judge whether the PhD forensic psychologist is correct or not, even though their entire introduction to forensic pathology was a frog, and they dissected in the 7th grade in science class. I can't get over how ludicrous the civilian jury system is. I mean, it's like I feel like I'm on an alternate planet going, what's wrong with everybody? Do they not see this? I mean, it's so obvious. It's a stupid system, but it's beloved, and we got to have it's great to have a jury system. I'm like, oh my God, no. A professional jury system at least would have some merit, 5 jurors, professional jurors picked out of a hat, and have at least backgrounds in like my background. I could analyze the cases. Dr. Lee sits before me. You can see that when I did the last video that I did. I'm sorry, now I forgot what the video was. Somebody tell me. What's his name? The music guy. What was he? Come on, somebody help me out here. The producer. Oh, come on, I just did a show.
Oh, Phil Spector.
Thank you.
Phil
Oh my
Spector?
God, yes.
Yeah.
I just completely blanked on his name. Yeah. I mean, I critiqued the forensic pathologist offerings in that trial, and I think I have a reasonable ability to do so from my background as criminal profile, and I'm hoping to bring that to the public so people can see how that works. But if I were on a professional jury, at least there would be somebody like me, and maybe hopefully 4 others who had other offerings. They would all have abilities and all have ability to critique those experts that come before us and say, okay, well, you're a really cool expert, but it's not real logical what you're saying here. Are you just being paid by the defense? It's like, at least you'd have some hope. But 12 people have not a clue. I mean, it's not their fault. It's not. I say, if you put me on a jury for auto mechanics or rocket science or Victorian history, I'm a fat loser, you know what I mean?
There we go.
Let's think about it. Okay, you have a degree, right? Is that what you're getting your degree in, right?
Yes.
Okay. You sit there and you tell me about Victorian history, and then you ask me whether I think you're correct or not. How does this make sense? I would have no idea if you tell me the truth. I would have to go home. I would have to start studying, wouldn't I? I'd have to start reading up on Victorian history to know whether you are accurate or not accurate. I wouldn't have any clue. I'd have to literally put myself through the paces to try to catch up to you in order to make a conclusion. So, no, it's just nonsense. Okay, what's 4th on your list? Oh, wait a minute, let's go. Okay, so you said the crimes. Okay, what's 4th on your list? You have one more, so I want to do your one more. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, I think it was just about how I got introduced to you and what you do, and I was in the hospital once, and a friend of mine brought me just some stuff to read because I hate being in the hospital and I get bored really easily. And I think he had listened to an interview. He's kind of a true crime junkie as well, and he listened to an interview of yours about. I think it was about Madeleine McCann because he's one of the ones that doesn't buy all the Christmas.
Oh, okay. He didn't like me at all, right?
Oh no, he likes you. He doesn't buy that at all. And he says, "Oh, listen to this. This is really good." But that's when you mentioned your Cleopatra book because being a history teacher, I thought that was really, really fascinating. And I actually part of my degree that I'm doing now, I'd forgotten about it for a while. But we had to go into nonfiction, an alternative genre to what we're doing. I'm doing fiction,
right?
And I don't really like nonfiction. I've never really, and I thought, well, read that book. Let's see, you like history, and I really enjoyed it because you actually made it sound, you wrote it in kind of a narrative style. It wasn't boring, dry nonfiction. It was
really
it was written like a story, and I really enjoyed reading about, and I also just enjoyed learning about Cleopatra. But
wow!
The whole process.
Do you know the number one complaint about that book is exactly that because I wrote it that way?
So you wrote it like a story.
I know, and they hated it. Most people hated it. It did not go over well. Because what I was trying to do is because I went back to Egypt and I was running around about Egypt, right? I was feeling Egypt for myself. I was seeing the pyramids. I was seeing what was today. Going into the mosque and seeing what the life was like today, and I wanted to bring people along with me on that trip. Apparently, some people did not want to go. So they were like, you're not very professional. You should have written this in a very dry tone. I had a lot of flack on that book, but I think a lot of the reasons I got the flack was because I had dared to challenge the 2,000-year history of Cleopatra. And I'm not a historian, and it was offensive to people that I would challenge history when I wasn't a historian. The most amazing thing happened out of that book was that I got, sorry if I keep doing this because I have a piece of hair on my face driving me nuts. I got a call to address it's been years, so I can't remember, but I think it was like some American Egyptology Association, really, really it was down near the Smithsonian or something in D.C., and I was asked to present to them. And I was really shocked because, they were Egyptologists. I mean, I'm like, you're going to invite me to talk to Egyptologists? And I did. It was really very cool. But so that was quite nice. That one person, at least, thought that I should be able to address the subject, even if I wasn't a particular, labeled a historian or labeled an Egyptologist. But I do believe sometimes what happens is, remember that fishbowl that I talk about?
Yeah.
You're in the fishbowl. You're a historian who studies Egypt and Roman history, and you're in the fishbowl, and all you read are the other historians in your field. And so you just keep repeating everything they say because that's what everybody says. For me, I'm like, I'm not one of you guys. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. This is the stupidest history I've ever read. And so I'm like, red flags go up everywhere because I'm looking at it as a profiler, not a historian or an Egyptologist. And I have no professional group around me to tell me I have to think this way. And for whatever reasons, Discovery Channel wanted me on the program, and when I told them what I thought, they were like, they liked it. And okay, so I went to Egypt and did my first part, and then I went back and did the book. But I think it was because I wasn't in the fishbowl that I was able to look at things and go, that makes no sense whatsoever. Absolutely no sense. And the fact that everybody kept repeating it for 2,000 years fascinated me, because did not anybody see a red flag go up and say, that's stupid? My favorite example of the whole book is, well, Mark Antony is in Alexandria, and Octavian has arrived with all the Roman armies, and they're basically trapped, and Cleopatra is in supposedly the mausoleum, which isn't. She's not in a mausoleum. She's in a temple because it has 4 floors, and no mausoleum ever was above ground. They're like underground. So that was one stupid thing in all the histories. Anyway, so she's in this huge temple, and Mark Antony supposedly stabs himself, which he doesn't. I think he's stabbed by his compatriots who say, we're not going to fight. And they bring him over to the temple. And the thing that cracked me up, this has been told for 2,000 years. They bring him, he's over to the temple, he's dying. They bring him over to the temple. She looks out the window, which doesn't exist, by the way, in a mausoleum. There's no windows in mausoleum. She's in a temple.
What's the point?
Right. Yeah. She's looking down from a temple, and she sees her husband down there, dying. And the story goes that she throws a rope over, and she and her handmaids, they tied around Mark Antony, and she and her handmaids haul his ass up the side of the mausoleum, which doesn't exist, and pull him up like 4 stories into a window. And I'm like, the woman's 39 years old. She's never lifted more than a feather in her life. She's a queen, you know what I mean? She's a pharaoh. Mm. And her 2 handmaidens, probably who were with her since she was a child, are probably in their 70s. I want to see a 39-year-old queen and 2 elderly ladies haul a 200 and some pound dead weight up the side of a building 4 stories on a rope.
So there's a crime scene reenactment you could try.
Oh my God! I want to. Yeah, this is the show I wanted to do, and I was going to actually do an entire series on this until that thing had happened in Egypt, and then everything crashed and burned. But also on top of that, here's a simple thing: Cleopatra was in control of the place she was staying. Her guards were at the door, so I'm like, open the door. You're gonna haul your husband up the side of a building. Boom, he's dying. Boom. No, open the door, carry the poor bastard in. You know what I mean? It's like I'm reading the history, going, this is so stupid. But every book I read repeated the same history. Why? Because
I thought it was really interesting what you did with the snakes. Because even with you did, even let's just assume she was bitten by a snake. But didn't you say only something like 2 snakes in the world could even be that venomous, or there's a handful or something. That
Well, no,
do that.
there is an Egyptian cobra, but the problem with the Egyptian cobra is that, first of all, depending on the size of the snake, if you got a little teeny snake, like a baby cobra, it doesn't have as much venom as an adult cobra. Now, supposedly, here's some more stupid things. Okay, so now she's locked in the supposed mausoleum with her 2 handmaidens. Okay, now she is at that point, by the way, she is under the control of Octavian. She has been trapped. She's been caught. She is in his custody, and she is stuck. There's no question. All right. So there's a guard at the door. Now, mind you, the guard. Now, supposedly Octavian wants more than everything in the world to take Cleopatra back to Rome and march her through the streets, right? And to brag about how he caught her, right? This is supposed to be his big hurrah. So I'm going to guess who's ever guarding the door better not screw up or is dead. So supposedly somebody comes along and says, "Oh, look, we have a basket of figs for Cleopatra." Okay, the entire freaking basket of figs, first of all, I don't think is really a good dinner, but okay. A few figs, okay, but a whole basket of figs, a little questionable right there. Now, if you were the guard on the door and your life depended on it, what would you do with a basket of figs? What would you do?
A basket of figs.
So some guy says, "This is for Cleopatra," hands you a basket of figs. Your life depends on her arriving in Rome alive. What do you do with a basket of figs?
I'd give her the basket of figs if her life was...
Oh, right there. First of all, they could be poisoned, and then she could poison herself. I'd chuck those baskets.
Yes, that's
I don't even
true.
know if I mentioned that, but you chuck that whole basket. Secondly, there's supposedly a snake in that basket. Do you not think they're at least going to do this? Look and see what's in the basket.
Maybe. Look at it.
Right. Maybe there's a vial of poison. Maybe there's a knife. Maybe a snake. I mean, wouldn't you at least look in the damn thing? Oh, no. We're not even going to bother. Oh, a basket of figs for Cleo. Sure. Let's take them in straight to Cleo. So now Cleo and her handmaidens have a basket of figs. The door is closed. So now, it gets so stupid. It's so unbelievable. So she's in there. She's like, okay, I got the snake in there now. I'm going to commit suicide. All right. So she reaches into the basket of figs and pulls out the snake. Now, again, it can't be that big. But anyway, she pulls out a snake, and she applies the snake to her. Let's say the snake actually bites her. What happens is, most snakes, when they bite, they have a thing called a dry bite. So a good portion of the time, they don't even throw the venom out. So there's a lot of dry bites. So supposedly she grabs the thing, no dry bite. It actually puts poison into her. Then she hands it to her handmaidens, who, if I were her handmaidens, I'd be going, hell no!
No, thank you.
I saw what happened to you. I'm not doing the snake thing. Okay, but no, her handmaidens are so wonderful. They decided to take the same snake and say, okay, so they're all applying the snake, but dry bites are the majority of the bites. So the chances of the snake actually biting 3 women in a row and poisoning all of them right away is very unlikely. So that's the first problem. Now, the next problem is this. Apparently, she sends this message to Octavian and says, "I'm killing myself." Okay, he doesn't live that far away, so he gets the message and he sends his men right over. And when they get there, Cleopatra's already like, and she's already dead, and the other handmaiden's dead, and the last handmaiden, even though she's dying, is putting a crown on Cleopatra's head because that's more important than the fact that you're like dying. And so it makes a good scene and a great artistic picture. And so all 3 women die, boom, together like that. Even though the guards show up right away, that's not the way venom works. So generally speaking, it takes hours for it to work. But in this case, oh no, it happened in 15 minutes. All 3 of them, and none of them had any symptoms of actual snake bite. In other words, they weren't foaming at the mouth. There wasn't anything. They were all completely normal looking, except for supposedly a couple little dots on Cleopatra's arms, which is ridiculous. And then this is always made me laugh. If you've been in a mausoleum in Egypt, it's hermetically sealed. I mean, those bricks go down to the wall like if this is the floor, the stones are like this. There's not a crack in them, and there will be not a crack in that floor. You walk in that front door and you see 3 dead women, and you assume it's a snake. Where the hell's a snake? Can't get out.
It would still be in there. It can't
Yeah, if I'm walking around with, I hope they got boots, but if they're walking around those stupid looking sandals, on the old ankle, nobody's looking for a snake. So the whole story is ridiculous. But yet, for 2,000 years, historians and Egyptologists have told the same story. And I'm like, what I said to the Egyptology people, I said, look, I didn't get accepted into Mensa. I'm no genius. I'm not a genius in any way, shape, or form. But I'm able to look at this and go, what the heck? And the only reason I think this is possible is because I'm not in the bubble. I'm not in your fishbowl. And you have been stuck in that fishbowl for so long that you cannot look at things logically and say, okay, regardless of what everybody else thinks, let me look at this and see what makes sense. What does the evidence support? So I think it's the first time a profiler ever looked at that particular case in Cleopatra in history. And it's not just her death, it's the entire history of Cleopatra. It's just nonsense. But when I put the book out, I got a lot of hate. I got a lot of hate, because I didn't go along with the program. And, that doesn't make people like you very much who are in the field. So, and the people in the field have huge power, So when you go against the people in the field, they'll come after you like you wouldn't believe. And so, yeah, it didn't go well. And so the nice thing about YouTube is that I'm pretty much assuming I've been trying to get this Cleopatra story done as a 4 to 6 part series in television. And since the first one crashed after the Discovery Channel, but the next one that was going to be my series on the case crashed, I've been trying forever to get anybody willing to go up against the establishment. I have been unsuccessful. So YouTube is going to be probably where I will do the series because I control my show. But it's interesting. So when you're looking at, when you're studying history, it's fascinating because history is written by the victors. It's written by the media of the time even, And so how do we know what we're learning is true? How do we know? When you're studying Victorian history, how do you know it's true?
Well, fortunately, in Victorian times, we do have written material. But you're right. When you
who wrote
back,
it? No, Cleopatra was. No, it was written by that was written by a historian, but back then, and everybody believes it because it was written. But he worked for the Romans, so he wanted to sell his books.
Yeah,
the Greeks weren't buying, and the Egyptians weren't buying. That would have been a hard sell. Yeah, it was the Romans that were in power. He wrote for the Romans, so it was stilted history. It was So who writes in the Victorian times? It's written, but we have written material now that's complete garbage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So how do we know?
And everything.
Yeah, it's very fascinating that you have to trying to get the actual evidence of anything. It's very difficult. People often ask me, "Would you look at this crime that happened in 1930?" I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I have very little information. I don't know if any of it's true. And there's so much that's happened since then that people just keep going on about in different ways. I don't know where the truth lies. I don't know where the evidence is. I'm hearing a bunch of hearsay crap, and so probably I can't do anything with it. So it's very interesting when you're studying history to ask yourself, who wrote this history? Should I believe it?
Yeah, we do tell the kids to look for bias as well, like when they have to analyze sources and things. Yeah. You do have to look at what type of did it come from a magazine? Did it come from, did it come from a newspaper? What newspaper did it come from? Because different newspapers have different agendas. Was it in England? Was it in Germany? Like when you're doing the world wars, because it's going to be a very different perspective. We do a lot on propaganda as well.
And it's interesting how it spreads, because one of the articles I wrote on history was It's on my blog. Maybe I'll put it on the blog because it's fascinating. How I almost became the great niece of, oh, okay, Hitler's right-hand man. Oh, come on now. Emma Goring.
Oh, Eva Braun. Eva Braun. Yeah.
No, Emma Goring. Eva Braun was his wife.
Oh, sorry.
Goring was his right-hand man.
Emma, right hand. Oh, okay. I thought you said.
Right. Emmy Goring was his second wife. I wrote an article on that because my family, for the entire time till my father died, believed that Emmy Goring, the wife of the second in command of the Nazis, was one of our relatives. How did they believe this? Well, Emmy Goring's original name was Zonnemann, which was my original name, my maiden name. My father was Harry Zonnemann. They came over in the last boat out of as I said, out of Germany as Jews. Now, Emmy Goring, when she married Goring, there were a lot of people who claimed that she was an actress and she was Jewish. She was really Jewish, and he changed that so he could marry her. In other words, you can change the documents.
Yeah.
In other words, I like this Jewish woman, but I can't marry a Jew, so hey, I'll make her a Christian. So supposedly that's what happened. That's what's the theory. So it went down that she was somehow related to Leopold Zonnemann, which was my great grandfather, great uncle. I can't remember. Anyway, he was the publisher of the Bild Zeitung. Oh, I think no, is that the right one? I've got the wrong one. Whatever paper it was, and he ran a bunch of he did a bunch of stuff. He was well known, and he met Marx, so he's kind of a Marxist. So anyway, somehow Emmy Goring, married to the Nazi, was connected to my relative Leopold Zonnemann. Okay. Now that was in the newspapers in Germany. Somehow the Jewish newspapers in America got hold of it, and they published that truth in America. My father went to his grave believing that one of our relatives was a Nazi.
Oh my God.
And it was so funny because after he died, one of my cousins actually contacted me, and she says, "Do you know the story about Emmy Goring?" I'm like, I've heard tell in weird ways. So both of us started investigating. Are we related to Emmy Goring, the Nazi? And so eventually she actually went to Germany and dug up all the old records. It was fascinating, absolutely fascinating history. And we both finally concluded that it was all a lie. She actually was related to some Zonnemanns out of a completely different city. She was Christian. She was not related to our relative Leopold Zonnemann. And all of this was media lies. so it was kind of funny because my literary agent was so bummed because she was so looking forward to Pat Brown putting out this book, how I was truly the great niece of Emmy Goring, Oh, what a book. But it turned out to be a blog post, how I almost was the great niece of Emmy Goring. And so fascinating. It was some of the most fascinating things I've ever experienced because it was part of my family. But it wasn't true, But my father believed it till the day he died, because I remember one day we were sitting at the dining table, when he was in his late 80s, almost 90, maybe he was 90 at that point, and he had these salt shakers and pepper shakers, and he goes, and here was your father, and and that was this woman. I forgot whether she was a pepper or salt shaker, but she went over here, that actress. And so it was fascinating. So that was one of the ways I learned how history is deceptive, because I have the newspaper articles that claim Emmy Goring is my great aunt. I am a descendant of a Nazi, even though that part of our family is Jewish. So go figure, but that's how things work. So I am very skeptical when I read any history now, because I know who controls history. And I've seen things written about me, which I know are complete fat lies, and because that person has more power than me, they can say what they want, and and it goes across the internet like this, and I put my name and I go, oh crap, I didn't know that, I'm learning things about myself every day. It's like, it's fascinating. But so I'm always I find history fascinating in that if you take it as a whole, as to understand the entire culture and how things move through time, it really works. But sometimes the individual things that happen aren't true. They're just not true.
Yeah, very, very, very true.
Yeah. So when are you finishing? When are you finishing your
if all goes to plan, next year about this time, then I'll have my master's degree.
How super cool is that?
Fingers. Yeah, I'll be glad when it's done. But
and are you going to be writing a cool Victorian fiction book? Are we looking forward to that?
I hope so. I hope so. That's going to be one of the projects I think I'm going to try to do.
Very neat.
Probably be a short one, but yeah, why not? I mean,
and you can come to me for all the advice on publishing. I promise you, because I
watched your show about the big 5 publishers.
I've published with 5 different publishers, and I've self-pubbed, and I have a lot of knowledge on publishing. So and can give you, I think, pretty good advice on that. And because it's not easy to publish these days, and it's pretty miserable, and so it's all kinds of methodologies, but I've been through them all. Believe me. And right now at this point in my life, I'm self-publishing, entirely self-publishing my fiction of the future and any nonfiction. And unless, of course, some publisher comes along and says, I'm going to give you $100,000 on that for an advance, in which case I'm going to say, okay, I'm not stupid. So, but here's the basic advice. Anybody who's a writer out there, whatever advance they offer you, that's how much money you're going to make. Your chances of ever making more than an advance is very, very limited. So people say, oh, don't accept the advance because you could make more. Oh, no, take the advance. We'll jump on that sucker.
Take the money and run.
Yeah, take the money and run. And if they offer you like a really crappy advance, like, we'll give you $1,000, ask yourself, do you need that $1,000 that badly? Because you'll never see any more. That means they don't have any faith in you, and they don't think it's going to make anything. So what they do is they offer $1,000 to like 50 different authors, and they're hoping that one of those authors will just be lucky. And that one author might be lucky, but the rest of them are all just going to starve to death. So the publishing industry is brutal. So yeah, come to me with that first. You're one of my wonderful patrons, so I'm happy to give some free advice on publishing, because I've been there and done that, and so frustrating. Let me tell you, so frustrating. My self-pub book, Only the Truth, which is below in case you want to link on. That's my only fiction book so far. I've actually sold. People have downloaded over 200,000 copies of that book. Very popular and self-pubbed, and that's the second biggest payday I ever had on a book. But only because they were trying to sell Kindles at the time, so I got super publicity. But I love that book, and I think it's a really good fiction story. I think people really enjoy it, so I really recommend. It's only $2.99. It supports the channel, so click on that. Only the Truth. And I am working on. I have 2 more fiction books coming out, but I'm so busy with YouTube, I have no time to write them. So, when is your book coming out, Gretchen?
Oh goodness, like you say, it's just finding the time to do it. I'm going to sit down and hopefully get something. Use one of the assignments I did this year for the Victorian one, and then my one about the French Revolution. I want to carry that through till next year, so hopefully it's pretty much written by the time I finish my degree.
Oh, okay, you're actually making progress.
Yeah, I've actually put pen to paper a bit, but yeah.
Well, there's no pen to paper anymore. It's
finding. That's true.
Oh my God! If I had to write it,
I still write stuff down.
Seriously, I don't even know what a paper is. Yeah.
Oh.
I never wrote anything until there was a real computer. Until remember you're 55. Do you remember the green crap? The green computer, and then it had that. What is that called? A horrible stuff that came. The old days of computers with it. That green screen.
Oh yes, I know what you're talking about now. Yes, and it was the old big floppy disk.
Oh God, help us! Yeah, even that wasn't good enough. My father wanted me to be a writer. He said you should be an author because one of our ancestors was an author. He wanted me to go in the German tradition of being an author, And I'm like, I couldn't, everything I wrote by hand was too slow for my brain, and I couldn't do it, and I can't read my writing anyway because I'm I write like a doctor. So then I finally got my first computer. I'm like, there's hope, but that computer sucked too. And even typewriters sucked. They were like, all those things, they never crisscrossed and messed everything up, and you couldn't edit. And then finally, true, ability to just type and edit, and my whole world changed right there. So, for me, 7 books in, if it hadn't been for computers and laptops and the ability to do what we do today, oh my God, I'd be dead in the water. I never would have been an author. So.
Well, there used to be a time like authors, it was physically impossible for them also to be famous during their lifetimes, because by the time they actually got their books written and they were out there, they probably died.
Oh.
And then they got
paid. That's that. Oh, by the way, MS-DOS. Thank you. How old are you? You should not know this, because I don't know if that picture is you. You shouldn't know MS-DOS. Yes, that was it. It was horrible. A little green screen. But yes, one of the things that happens oftentimes, it's like Cleopatra. I feel like I've broken through the whole myth of Cleopatra. That's the one thing I think I've truly contributed to history is to actually look at Cleopatra, who she was, which I think was a brilliant queen. I think all the history is a lie about her. And my work has not been recognized. And I'm going to assume maybe there'll be some grandkids someday going, oh, look, they finally thought Grandma's book was great. I won't be around. Or it'll just be stolen. This is what usually happens. You write something, it becomes very obscure, right? Because it's no longer being published. And even though the internet is forever now, you go way down. Somebody finds it, and they steal your shit. And then they just redo it. And then everybody says, oh my God, they're so brilliant. And it was actually something you actually wrote 100 years prior or 50 years prior. Actually, the Cleopatra thing about the snake, that's been stolen. I've already had that stolen. They give a lot of if you put in Cleopatra was not killed by a snake, you'll come up with a German guy, and because he's a doctor of something or other, and anyway he's like, they say, oh, look what he wrote. I'm like, yeah, he wrote that 4 years after I did the damn show. So I've seen people steal my work and they don't credit me, because they have more clout than I have. So they just take my stuff and pretend it's theirs. Happens all the time. And even though they're academics and they're supposed to then give their, put in the footnotes and in the bibliographies, this is where they got it from, they just don't. They just steal it. And I can prove that I put that information out before they did it. But how am I going to get the information out how am I going to get that information out if they control the media? So you see, oh yeah. So you have to take it with well, hopefully one day the world will know the truth. They just won't know it was me. It's like, that sucks. But it's the way it goes. I wanted to put out this one person. What? Wait a minute. Let me see what Emma says. It would be pretty remarkable that whoever prepared this basket didn't end up dead. Well, generally I can see I can't see a cobra even cooperating. Yeah, well, actually, that's not true. Snakes. I'm going to do a really interesting show about a guy who tried to kill his wife with a snake. It's an Indian. It's going to be one of my Friday night ones. A guy tried to kill his wife with a snake. And it's a fascinating case about how snakes work. So the thing is, snakes don't, generally speaking, attack. They don't. They attack for food.
They're fairly docile, aren't they?
Huh? Yes, they are.
Aren't they fairly docile? Yeah.
Correct, especially when they're cold. So when they're very cold and there's no reason to eat, you can oftentimes just pick up a snake. And if you put gloves on, you can pick up any snake in the right place and just chuck them in the basket. So no, that would work. Lisa says, Pat, what made you question the death of Cleopatra? I wish I could say that I actually questioned the death of Cleopatra, but no, it was actually, here's what happened. I wrote it in my book. Discovery Channel contacted me and said, Pat, we would like to know whether you'd like to do the show on Cleopatra, whether she died, from the snake. Well, what's interesting was that they actually had no idea. What television does is they look for anything that's controversial, and they don't have any clue. So they come up with different. They spit these ideas out at these meetings, and they're like, okay, what can we come up with Cleopatra? And when they called me, I'm like, I'm not going to come and say a bunch of bull, so I'm not going to do a stupid show that, question things that aren't even true. I knew nothing about Cleopatra. So I rolled into the Barnes & Noble bookstore. I walked into the Cleopatra section. I opened up the thing. I started reading about her death, and I went, oh my God, this is unbelievably stupid. And I called them back and said, yeah, I'm on board, because she didn't die from a snake bite. And they went, really? They were like shocked, because, no. And I'm like, absolutely not. This is just nonsense. And so then they brought me on board, and we did the documentary. And then from that point on, I became very interested in all the rest of her life, which is all a pack of lies, like 90% lies. Unbelievable. So not just the snake issue, but that she didn't commit suicide. Now they're saying that they got rid of the snake. The snake is gone. But now they're saying she must have smuggled in some poison. She didn't die of poison either. She didn't commit suicide. She was murdered by Octavian. And all the rest of her history is garbage. I mean, and I have evidence to prove it. I can support it with all the evidence. So that's why I wrote the book, The Murder of Cleopatra, which is still available on Amazon. But, it's fascinating because I really have the proof. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I'm like, here is the proof. Just like I talked about, she wasn't in a mausoleum, because mausoleums are almost all underground in Greece and Egypt. So when you say she's in some place with windows, she's not in a mausoleum. So why are you calling it a mausoleum? It's just that kind of stuff, which I can prove. And I went to Egypt, and I went down, and all the mausoleums you go down, except for the pyramids. But even those don't have any. That was way before the time, and they didn't have any windows in them. So just nonsense. What's this one? A snake charmer traded the snake to lie low while the Romans were on the scene. Perhaps so. They said in the story that they looked later into the sand, and they saw an imprint of a wavy line that must have been the snake moving away. I was like, really? Okay, sure. It's just just such nonsense. It's amazing. So, I'm looking forward to. Oh, wait. I want one more question before we end today, because I think we've been here for quite a long time, because it's fun.
Quite a long time, yeah.
Yeah, see? I always we should keep these short, and then we're here for hours. Now, here's my last question that I want to ask you. Since you've studied Victorian stuff, and you've studied crime, do you have a particular book of the era, or a book written about the era, that people should read, that you think was really cool and really well done? Are you going to have to come back for another show to answer?
I think a lot of the Dickens things like Hard Times, and those are probably good stories about the era. I mean, yeah, they're fiction. I mean, they're Bleak House, and those are very good.
Bleak House. Okay, what's your favorite Dickens one?
Oh, my favorite Dickens one is A Tale of Two Cities.
Oh, really? Oh, that's right. You did say Tale of Two Cities. I think I've failed to read that one. So now I got to read it. Okay, I got to read it now. I think I had trouble with Bleak House. Okay. What's the other famous one he's known for? I read that one.
Well, Christmas Carol is one of my absolute favorites.
Christmas Carol, yes, definitely.
That's more of a short. I think that's actually only about 50 pages.
That one's
long.
short.
It's not a very long story.
Right. What else has he written?
Oh, let's see. Tale of Two Cities, David Copperfield, Nicholas Nickleby, Edwin Drood.
What's the other one? Okay, what's the one about the woman? Oh, shoot. Ow. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Dombey and Son. There's Dombey and Son, but that's more of about a...
Hold on a second. I just dropped my iPad on the floor. I'm trying to Google here. No, I was trying to Google. No, I'm thinking of... What am I thinking of? Okay, this is nuts. Sit there. Okay. Oh, wait. Hold on. Now I'm trapped here. Excuse me a minute. Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to pull up the whole David Copperfield thing, because now it's going to drive me nuts. I'm trying. I mean, not David Copperfield, but Dickens. Okay. What? am I thinking of? Okay, what are his books? Okay, give me his books. All right. I am thinking of, all right. Okay. Where are his books? Okay, books, where are they? Give me his books. Well, there's a lot written about him.
Oh, Great Expectations?
Yes, okay. Thank you. Great Expectations. I lost my mind here. Yeah. That was I think that was my second favorite. Yeah, Great Expectations. It's a great movie too. I really
yeah.
I really enjoyed the movie. So Great Expectations. That was it. Oh. Yeah, I think that was my two favorite. David Copperfield's my favorite, but Great Expectations was my second favorite. And I think one of the things I loved about both of them was the issues of the survival of that era, and what they had to do to survive, and how people treated them, and how the whole society worked. I think that was just fascinating. But I guess I have to see The Tale of Two Cities. So now that's my next reading material. So I'm gonna do it. What's that? The Old Curiosity Shop. Did you read that one, Lisa?
I haven't read that one. I haven't read the Old Curiosity.
He's got a long list of stuff, and some of his stuff is, here's my theory on writers, and this might be important for you, because you're going to become a writer. I've often felt that most writers only have one book in them. They write one great book, and then after that it's just crap. Because they've just written the one great book that they needed to write, or after that the publisher started pushing them to churn out stuff, and they churned, and it never was as good. There are very few authors, I feel, that actually are able to put out more than one great book. My favorite author of all time is John Steinbeck, and I think he is able to put out. He has had so many good books, and they're so different. And I think the reason he did that was because there was a great lapse of time between each book. He truly got into whatever he was writing about, and so each book was fascinating in its own right, and very unusual. So he's one of them. I think that Dickens managed to accomplish at least a number of good books before, and then there were a bunch of stuff that was, because you're writing a lot, and not everything you write is great. But I think he did at least put out a number of good books, and I'm trying to think of any other author that I thought put out more than one good book. It's hard to come up with them, I mean, a lot of people love series of books, I read over 50 of his books, like, whatever crime series or whatever. But it's like romance series. You just change the name and the places, and you got another story.
Oh yeah, like Barbara Cartland or something.
My God,
Did she
yeah.
write something
But
like 200 books in her lifetime? But
yeah. If you want a
the
beach
same
read,
story.
if you want a beach read, and you just don't want to think much or something, I get it. But if you're looking for quality, usually it's hard for people to continue with that kind of quality, and to have that kind of an amazing, the best American novel, the best British novel, or whatever, to be able to write one novel that is spectacular. One of my favorite novels of all time is called Devdas, Devdas, written in 100 years ago, approximately, maybe 140. It's written by an Indian author, and it's the Romeo and Juliet of India. It's a very small book.
Oh, wow.
It's a very small book. It's brilliantly written, and there's been 7 movies made based on that. And the story is, there's something about that story. It's just such a fascinating story, and it is a version of Romeo and Juliet, but way better than Romeo and Juliet ever was. Believe me, because of these weren't dumb teenagers, with some kind of little crush. These were older people who were trying to make decisions in society. And it's an absolutely fascinating book, and I love that book to death. And 7 different movies made on it. So that's how good it was. I don't know if he ever wrote anything else, but that book, that book was it. So I find it fascinating when you have one book. Like like Moby Dick. Did he ever write anything else worthwhile reading?
I don't think so.
I mean, how long did it take him to write that dang whale of a book? I mean, it's like this big, you know. So I have my favorite authors, but I usually think they've only written one or two great books, if you know, and the rest of it is just kind of like, you know, stuff. But Dickens was definitely one that wrote more than one good book. So, so I'm going to read A Tale of Two Cities because I haven't read it yet. Yeah, I got to do it. So I'm looking forward to your future endeavors as an author. I think it's going to be great. And
thank you.
And I think I should close the show out because wait a minute, hold on a second. I want to read what Lisa N says. I like the Oscar Wilde quote that you have to have a heart of stone not to laugh at the death of Little Nell from the old curiosity shop. Really? Oh, that's interesting. I remember
I've got to read it now.
No, yeah, me too, because I know that it's weird. Do you know this term Little Nell? For some reason I know Little Nell. I don't know why I know Little Nell, but I do know that. So is it famous in some way from the curiosity shop? I don't know. Interesting. But yeah, now I got reading to do. So, and I'm always looking for a really, really great book because there's nothing like reading something that's beautifully written and you just actually go, oh my God, this is brilliant. This is absolutely stunning. Every word is worthwhile. And for me, I know that when I start reading a book, I pretty much know within the first few pages whether it's worth reading. And I used to be one of those people that said, I have to read to the end of the book. And now I'm like, I'm wasting my time on that garbage.
They don't have to be within the first, it depends on how long the book is. If it's a really long book, I'll give it maybe 100 pages. And if they haven't hooked me by
to me, this thing is weird. It's like, if a person's a good writer, it captivates you right away. And if a person's not a great writer, they write a lot of totally fluff. It's like, are they writing something that has meaning, or are they just writing stuff that you're like, why am I reading this? Do I need to know about the wallpaper in that house? 2 pages of the wallpaper in the house. I really don't care. That's why I thought Moby Dick was fascinating, because I didn't think I had one reason to want to learn about whale bones. The skeleton of a whale and what you do with it. I'm thinking, why would I want to know? But his writing was that good. It actually fascinated me. I'm like, why am I finding this interesting? So I'm always amazed when something is that good that they can draw you in, and it's like, it's pretty phenomenal. I just really like it. Let's see. I have one more comment. Whose comment is, I don't think Wilde was a Dickens fan. Little Nell is a character from that novel, but Tale of Two Cities is way more worth your time. I'm with Gretchen on that. Oh, okay. All right. Tale of Two Cities it is. Although I might have to find out who Nell is at some point, just to see what Oscar Wilde was trying to say. So absolutely excellent. Well, okay, I think we've been here for like almost 3 hours. But Gretchen, I will love to have you come back. You've been fun.
Okay.
Yeah, you've been so much fun.
I did too. I loved it. I was really nervous at first, and I thought, oh no. Now I'm like, I'm curious.
Did you get over that? Yeah, I was like.
Oh yeah, very quickly.
Oh, good. That's good, because that was it's just funny, because somebody once asked me if I was would ever do anything where I interview people or hosted, and I'm like, I've never done that, because I'm always the interviewee, right? You know what I mean? Pat, can you come on our show? And I'm like, and then they, so Pat, what do you think? And I tell them, and then they say, thank you, Pat, and then they send me away. I've never hosted a show. I've never thought about doing it. So when I decided I'd do the phone-in, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go. But I've really enjoyed it. I really have. It's so much fun. And I'm getting to know, people in the community here. And I love the information you have and your experiences and what you have to offer everybody. I think it's fantastic. Oh, let's see. We had, see?
Thank you.
Thank you, Gretchen. Loved your contribution. So varied and interesting. Yeah, we even went a little off of crime, but who cares? There's more to life than murder. There's more to life than murder. So thank you so much, Pat and Gretchen. Molly says thank you, Gretchen, and good luck with your
everybody.
studies and writing. Awesome. That was really fun. So yes, I would love to have you come back. I know we got so much more we could talk about. So I know you get, and you're good at a little list, so you can put another little list together, right?
Yeah, travels that we've done. That'll be a good one. We'll be on here for probably 8 hours.
Okay. And I say this is a kind of a completely open, no great plan kind of show. You know what I mean? So it's different. When I do the hangouts, it's specifically totally crime oriented. Each one of those things is about, usually a homicide case or some other aspect of profiling, and that's the purpose. But this is kind of more like, we're kind of focused on crime and profiling, but hey, we want people to know that you want to have a balanced life, because people ask me as a profiler, how is it you handle, looking at crime all the time and, and also have a positive attitude. And I'm like, well, there's two possibilities. One, I'm a total psychopath, or I've learned to balance my life. And I hope that it's the balance of my life that I love reading, I like writing, I like traveling, I like animals, I'm an Indian Bollywood freak, I like Indian dance, I play pickleball and table tennis, and I love my granddaughter, my kids, my friends. I hope all of that balances out, the other things. And I think anybody who works in a field like this should balance. And I also even think if you're watching all these crime shows, I've seen people, get really, why am I like eating hair? What the heck? Maybe it's cat. Maybe it's that. That's a cat. I'm blaming it. That, even if you do that, you want to balance out how many YouTube shows on crime, except mine, and how many television shows on crime, how much you read in the newspapers about crime, and balance it out with that there's good people in the world, and there's good things happening in the world, and there's beauty in the world. I mean, I'm astounded by the beauty in the world. I'm astounded by art and music and nature. I mean, it's incredible. And yes, there's bad things that happen, but amazing amount of good things happen, and the fact that good things even continue to happen with the bad things, I think is pretty spectacular. So I try to, that's the way I look at it. And I hope everybody out there balance it. So, make sure that you put good things in your life, always good things in your life. So, along with my show. My show is different. You got to put that in there. Okay. Oh, and if you're still here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, join Patreon, because hey, and there's a little $sign now. You can click that and you can give a one-time support of the channel, which is cool. Thank you, YouTube. I will thank you because you demonetize me a lot, but I thank you for putting that in so people can support the channel. And I'm not any $1 million channel here. I'm just trying to continue to give to have this channel and survive. So I appreciate it.
You will be.
No. I'll never be $1 million channel, and that's okay. I'm never going to be that. I've learned that in my life, that I don't do the things that get me $1 million or 1 million subscribers. But I'd rather have you guys than all that nonsense, because I like life to be about good things and truth and justice, and not about how much money I can make off of people. I do like to survive. I mean, I'm not stupid. I gotta, it has to survive. It has to keep the channel going. But other than that, I'm okay with being moderate. And when you become an author, Gretchen, just be happy if people read your shit. You know what I mean? At least, like somebody besides your mother, your daughter. Oh, you don't have kids. Mother, your cat. Your best friend, that you make. Here, read this. Okay, put something up on Amazon, 5 stars. And, it's nice when you have people appreciate your stuff, and it doesn't have to be millions of people. You just want to know that what you put out there is something people appreciate, and it's good for them, and does some good. That's what we can hope. So thank you, Gretchen. I've lost my ability to speak. Gretchen. Oh my God. That's what happens after 2 hours. Thank you, Gretchen, for being here. You've been fantastic, and everybody's enjoyed your time here. So I will welcome you back for sure. Okay?
Okay, fantastic.
All right. I'll see you again here at some point in time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.